302 with SuperViper here on the SpeedGaming Line Marathon. That's looking pretty good over there. SuperViper, you want to take us away?
Alright, so hello everybody. As they just mentioned, I am SuperViperT302. I am currently third place in this category by a measly 23 seconds. I actually ran this game for No Kid Hungry back in June, I believe it was, and believe it or not, in the 5 months since then, there's been a number of small changes, so I'm really happy I'm going to get to show this off again, and you'll get to see a lot of new stuff, so let's go ahead and get started in 3, 2, 1, video games. Alright, so Super Mario Galaxy 2 starts off with 2.5 minutes of prologue, and there's not really a whole lot to it. So I'll be using this time to sort of talk about some of the basics behind the game. So the way to complete this game, it's very similar to its predecessor, Galaxy 1, as well as like SM64, where you need a certain amount of stars to actually complete the game. In this case, it is 70 stars in order to unlock Bowser's Galaxy Generator, which is the final level. And then you also need an additional star from Galaxy Generator in order to actually trigger the end credits. So this is, in essence, a 71 star run. And right here, this Master Luma is going to go into Mario's hat, and he's going to give us the ability to spin. And spinning basically lets you do everything in this game. You pretty much can't beat the game without it. There's a lot of features that it provides you. And coming up, we have one of the first minor tricks of the run. It's actually not that bad, but we'll see what happens here. Alright, so what just happened there is when you land on a slope like that with a high amount of speed and then you jump within the first few frames of landing, you can actually retain that momentum while you're jumping. Unlike Galaxy 1, you can't actually climb up slopes in this game. Nice backflip there. Oh my goodness. That was really bad. Unlike Galaxy 1, you can't actually climb up slopes in this game, but you can get those nice little slope boosts. So you saw me backflip there. That section that I was long jumping through is not in perfect 2D. This is mostly a 3D platformer, but there are sections of this game that are in 2D, and that section is weirdly not one of them, which is really stupid, and sometimes causes stuff like that to happen. It's okay, though. So, coming up is potential for me to get a small little text skip. It doesn't really matter if I get it. It saves like half a second at best. So, on this second set of text boxes that the Luma speaks to us with, there's normally 4 of them, but if you waste a few frames on the first 2, and then get the third one frame perfect, I'm not getting it, then you can skip that 4th one and it saves like half a second. I don't really go for it, but sometimes with the way I mash, it just happens to work out. Alright, and now we're going to be heading off to the first level of the game, Sky Station 1, and there is a lot to explain right out of the gate here. This is a very action-packed level. So at the start here, you're supposed to go to the bottom half of this planet and then take a pipe or something to get to the top here, but you can just do this very common maneuver you're going to see me use here where I'm just going to wall jump and spin up there instead. And if I stand still after this Luma finishes speaking, then the cutscene ends about half a second earlier. So you'll notice that that spin move I have in this game, that's kind of the meat of the movement in this game because it allows you to climb super high surfaces like that you wouldn't normally be able to otherwise. And I'm going to be doing that again here. So what I just did there is a trick called Luma Bounce, and that basically requires doing a homing ground pound, which I'll explain later, off that Luma, and it skips the launch star that it normally unlocks. It saves like 1 second, and if you fail it, you die, but it's worth it, and it's honestly not too difficult. And right there, I collected my first Comet Medal. Just know that there is 1 Comet Medal in every galaxy, and I'm going to be wanting to collect those whenever I can. And backwards momentum is superior to forwards momentum in this game, as is the case with every Mario game. So you can do pretty cool stuff like that. Alright, so here's the first boss fight of the game. This is Pee-wee Piranha, sort of a spoof of the other Piranha fights in the other 3D Mario games. You're supposed to spin out its shell like 2 or 3 times. But a simple ground pound shatters it in 1 hit. You have to have pretty good timing to avoid getting hit by Pee-wee Piranha, though. Luckily, the second hit's a lot easier. Alright. Pee-wee takes a lot longer to run away for that second hit, so it's a lot easier to get the early one. For the first hit, I actually had some star bits in reserve so that I could stun him so he couldn't get away quickly. And there we go. That is the first star out of 71. So, the main thing that makes this game so long is the amount of downtime it has, and this is especially more prominent in the early game. There's usually anywhere between like 45 seconds to a minute between stars, just from like text boxes and dialogue and all that. And most of that is going to come from the purple idiot himself, Lubba, who... this is basically just a bunch of story exposition. Something else I should probably talk about is what you saw in the lower right-hand corner as those like text boxes were appearing. That's actually an in-game time that I had for that star, which is a really useful tool, both obviously for grinding IL times and also for getting a good comparison with other runners. And right here, the two options are yes and that's right. It doesn't really matter which one you pick. You get the same outcome either way. And text is surprisingly hard to optimize in the Galaxy games. You have to hold A to make it scroll faster, but then you have to release it and then press it again in order to close the text box, and doing that optimally is very tricky to do. It takes a lot of time to get down. So this is Starship Mario, the hub world of the game, and after Lubba's finished talking here, I'm going to hold straight down, which is going to make Mario face the camera. And that way I can backflip straight to the button. Whenever I'm on Starship Mario, my goal is always going to be to get to that button, because that's going to allow me to progress to the world map, which is how I get from galaxy to galaxy, and that's how I get stars, which I need to beat the game. And early on, my options for where I can go are going to be pretty limited, but as we get further in the game, it'll really start to expand a lot more. So, next we're going to actually go to Sky Station 2, and when I say Sky Station 2, I mean that's the second main star, which is a star that isn't a comet or a hidden star. So this is like a main mission. And this star, I would say, is not nearly as flashy as the one you just saw, but there's still a lot of really tiny optimizations that can be made here and there. So right here I have to catch a pretty tight chomp cycle. Alright, I made it. That's very finicky to do. And you'll notice that I'm actually going to be taking some really weird movement on this planet. I'm going to do a single jump here, and that's just due to the way the gravity works. It's actually more advantageous to maintain your momentum using a single jump like that. Alright, and on this planet I want to have pretty good movement because the elevators inside here are actually on cycles, and if I have optimal movement, then I can make a pretty fast... I can take a pretty fast path through here. Alright, so I was able to avoid grabbing that 1-up. You get a text box when you grab your first 1-up in this game, but it's basically guaranteed that I'm going to grab a 1-up later at some point, so it doesn't really matter that I skipped it there. And then the rest of this star kind of speaks for itself, so I'll go ahead and talk about one of the main mechanics in this game. That's actually in both Galaxy games. So you'll notice whenever I land from a launch star that the camera's going to kind of twitch and you'll hear this like click sound. And that's actually me going into first person mode and then exiting it as soon as possible. You're about to see it here in a little bit. Yeah, right, that. So what that does is cancel the landing animation that normally takes place when Mario lands from a launch star. Which saves about a second each time you do it, and since you take a lot of launch stars in this game, that's really going to add up, and it's one of the biggest time saves you can learn in the entire run, really. Alright. There is a second type of landing cancel as well that I'm only going to be going for at the start of most stars. So you can actually jump out of almost any landing animation if you jump within... It varies between 1 to 2 frames depending on the situation, but well, let's just say it's frame perfect for simplicity. You can do a frame perfect jump out of landing animations, but it's really only useful at the start of stars in the fly-in cutscene because you can't go into first person mode to cancel those. But again, it's frame perfect, and this game runs at 60 FPS, so it's very unlikely that I'll get it more than a handful of times. Okay. So, we're heading off into Yoshi Star Galaxy next, and if you are not a stranger to Galaxy 2 glitches at all, then you probably know that Yoshi has an incredibly broken mechanic in this game that's obviously unintended, but really, really opens up the speedrun, and it's called infinite fluttering. It basically speaks for itself. I'll explain how you do it later, but for now, just know that there's a pretty finicky skip I'm going to go for in this level. It saves about 20 seconds if you can get it, and loses 45 if you miss it. But it's a really nice demonstration of infinite fluttering. So I'm going to need to focus here for a little bit, so I'm probably going to be a bit quiet. Guys, like I said, this is a pretty tight skip to do here, and failing it loses a lot of time. Whoa. So I actually, before I explain infinite fluttering, I'll explain what happened there. So that high bounce I got is actually not what's supposed to happen normally. But that bounce normally happens when you bounce on an object 3 times in a row with Yoshi. But for some reason, it can sometimes happen on the very first bounce, and I have no idea why. But that did make the skip a little bit easier, and I ended up making it, so it's not a huge deal. So the way infinite fluttering works is there's normally a cooldown timer that takes place between flutters that prevents you from chaining them in succession, like I am here. But Nintendo made the really smart decision of allowing you to crouch during a flutter. And so this cancels both the flutter and the cooldown and allows you to immediately flutter again. And as you saw during that star, you can use it both to gain exorbitant amounts of distance, because, like I said, you gain a lot of momentum when going sideways and also slightly backwards. And you can also use it to gain a decent amount of height, which, again, really opens up this game. There are a bunch of caveats to infinite fluttering, though, and I'll get into those as we go throughout the run, because it is not as simple as one might expect. Okay, so in Yoshi Star 1, I used infinite fluttering to skip one planet and save about 20 seconds, which is a pretty decent time save, but this is probably one of the biggest infinite flutter skips in the game, because you basically skip the entire level and it saves close to a minute. This one, I would say, is not nearly as difficult as the previous one, but there is a slightly weird camera change midway through that can mess some runners up. So let's see how this goes. Okay. So there we go. The thing with infinite fluttering is that once you get the rhythm for it down, it's just a matter of learning what angles to hold to actually pull off all the skips, but it can take a lot of time to figure out. Alright, so now we're fighting Eagle-Eye T2, which is the first pointer-based boss in the run, which means if you don't have a good sensor bar, it can be really painful. So right here, I'm gonna wait for him to start that attack so I can go down here and grab this checkpoint for safety reasons. Alright. Cool glitch there. If you uncrouch and spin on the same frame, you get that sliding state. It's completely useless. Alright. So that might have looked slow to you, the fact that I tongued both of those spinies once before I threw one at Eagle-Eye T2, but that was actually so I could do this. By doing that, I had a spiny in reserve for the third phase, which allows me to shoot it at him right away without having to wait for him to shoot out additional spinies, which saves a decent chunk of time. And there we go. Alright. So, overall not too bad of a start. Nothing too major happened. And like I said, your path throughout the early portion of this game is pretty limited, especially in terms of what stars you can and can't do. But it'll start to become a lot more open-ended. So up next, we're going to be heading to Spin Dig Galaxy, where we're going to be seeing the first of Mario's actual power-ups, and this is actually one of the first new power-ups to this game. The Spin Drill. So when you have the Spin Drill, you can spin, as the name implies, and you can actually drill through dirt patches, and this usually allows you to end up on the other side of a planet. The cool thing about this level is that Nintendo kind of forgot that Mario can jump when designing it. So there's a lot of sequence breaks that involve skipping the spin drill by just jumping to where you need to go, like right here. Easy as that. Alright, and coming up, you're going to see me do another instance of a homing ground pound. A homing ground pound is basically a spin followed immediately by a ground pound. It homes in on the nearest item, enemy, or NPC. I'm going to do it on the spin drill to get a little bit of momentum. That's the trick you saw me do for Luma Bounce in Sky Station 1. And right here is a little bit of a sequence break here. I'm going to double jump into the corner of this pillar, and that kind of clips me inside of it, and saves a few seconds of walking. I would have to walk a bit further to the left and then walk back to the right in order to actually do that the intended way. And this planet's just kind of on a timer, so you probably noticed by now that I'm actually shooting out all my star bits, and I'm trying to avoid coins whenever possible. And that's because if you have coins or star bits in your inventory when you complete a level, then you get text boxes that count them down that waste about 1 second each. Sometimes it doesn't lose time, but for the most part it does. So I'm going to try to minimize it. I'm going to try to avoid getting star bits whenever possible. But here I need them because I need to shoot Captain Toad in the face there to skip some text boxes. That's a pretty funny skip there. And now here's Dig-a-Leg. This boss is the first major instance of RNG in the run. It's usually not a huge difference whether you get good or bad RNG, but it can be really annoying if you get bad RNG. So right here I'm going to press myself up against Dig-a-Leg, and I actually want it to jump on top of me. Not like that. It's essentially a 50-50 chance. We don't know the exact odds, but theoretically manipulatable, but we don't actually know for sure. And what that would do is it would basically cause him to jump on top of me, and then he would jump straight to the other side of the planet and immediately become vulnerable. So I have another chance to get it here. Alright, I didn't get it there, but there's a nice little backup where I can just stand still and he stops sooner. And I also want to try to keep those yellow enemies alive as much as possible, because then he doesn't try to spawn anymore before becoming vulnerable. So if I didn't kill that first one, he wouldn't have spawned any. So that was a mediocre Dig-a-Leg, not too great. But it's, again, theoretically manipulatable, but mostly it's just out of your control. Alright. And this is going to be the first of many stars in this run where we're not going to be brought to the top of the starship, we're actually going to be brought to the bottom, and this is when Lubba, aka the Purple Idiot, it wants to introduce various NPCs to us, as well as other random unlockables on the starship. For the most part, none of them really matter in terms of speedrunning, so I'm just gonna head straight back to the button as soon as he finishes slapping his gums, which he does quite often. And this movement coming up is actually relatively new, and saves barely any time over the old movement we used to do, but it's time save, so I'm gonna do it. Alright, so the next galaxy I'm going to visit is Right Side Down, which is one of the first galaxies to really test your knowledge of how gravity fields work, because gravity can either be on the floor or the ceiling, and there are arrows that pretty obviously indicate which is which and where. This level has a lot of really nice skips in it that mostly just come from convenient level design and convenient object placement, and you'll see what I mean very shortly. So to start here, I have this really cool backflip that can potentially get me all the way down to this flower. Alright, and the game wants me to hit a gravity switch here to flip the direction of gravity, but there's an item block placed right here that allows me to get all the way down to this section of the level. Go for another slip boost here. Nice. And similarly, right here, there's another lever the game wants me to hit to flip the direction of gravity, but these elevators are once again conveniently placed right next to where I need to go, which saves a decent amount of time. And coming up, we have a pretty risky section of the level. I'm going to grab the fire flower here, and I'm going to attempt to try skipping breaking some of these boxes by going under them. Okay, so I actually messed up my setup there, so I had to dish it, but I'll go for another one here. There we go. The thing about messing up those box skips is that if you get crushed in this game, regardless of how much health you have, it's an automatic death, and that can very easily happen if you mess up your setup for those skips. So I just decided to not risk it for the first one. And right here, you can just skip the entire rest of the level by going on the top there. And then awkwardly get back into the 2D section. And believe it or not, you're actually supposed to be able to go up there because there's actually one-ups in the four corners of that platform, which is hilarious. Alright, so now I'm actually going to be re-entering right side down to get the Galaxy's Secret Star or Hidden Star. And I'm actually going to be able to skip the level intro cutscenes because I've already seen them once, which is a nice gesture. If only you could do that the first time. So I'm just going to be mashing A through these. And similarly to right side down 1, I'm going to be skipping a gravity lever here by just jumping straight into the pipe instead. I'm going to go for a cool little momentum jump. Alright, if you get enough momentum from that jump, you can skip that wall jump, but it doesn't save that much time. And here we have the first box burning minigame, reminiscent of the trash blowing up minigames from Galaxy 1. These are pretty hard to do casually, and even in speedrunning, it's really hard to do them without losing too much time. And of course, there's an in-game timer, so it's easy to know if it was good or bad. Alright, barely a 12. The best I've ever gotten on that is a 13, and you can barely get a 14, so that wasn't too bad aside from a couple of really stupidly missed shots. And that's it for right side down. So, the Purple Idiot, aka Lava, is going to introduce a very important character to us. This toad that's about to show up is going to be useful later in the run, and I'm not going to spoil anything, but just know that he is going to play an important role in this run being possible. Alright. So, next I'm going to go to Fluffy Bluff Galaxy, where we're introduced to a fan-favorite power-up, the Cloud Flower, which has a lot of really broken physics behind it, mainly because it makes Mario a lot floatier. And there's a lot of really cool tech you can do with the Cloud Flower that I'll explain as I go. I'm actually going to be doing the Secret Star here first, which requires collecting 100 coins to feed a Hungry Luma. If that number sounds big, it is, especially considering this is the first Hungry Luma in the game, and that's the most coins required. But there's two really obvious locations to get coins from that I'm going to be getting. I'm going to long jump into this Cloud Flower here so that Mario faces the camera during that text box, which gives him a little bit of backwards momentum. So I have to make sure I don't run out of time here when collecting these coins, otherwise I have to dish the star. And each of those three little clouds you see trailing behind me is a small little platform that can be made by spinning, and you can use these clouds to cross to otherwise impossible distances, some intended, some unintended. Right, I missed a coin there, so I'll grab that one real quick. I want to leave this room with 60 coins, and then the remaining 40 are on the cloud where the Hungry Luma is. Hopefully I don't miss any here. Missing coins here is really stupid, because then you have to go out of your way to get backups. Alright, and now we're going to feed them to the Hungry Luma, and he's going to transform into a planet that has an additional star for us to collect. And I'm going to be utilizing a bunch of neat cloud tech as I'm climbing this planet, and I'm just going to kind of let the movement speak for itself, and then I'll explain everything afterwards. But for now, just enjoy the movement, because optimal cloud movement looks really sick. was pretty good. So the main cloud tech is actually crouching as soon as you make a cloud, because that actually cancels the cloud making animation and allows you to move right away. But an added benefit of that is that when you make a cloud, it sort of bounces upwards. And the thing with moving platforms in this game is that moving platforms will actually give Mario's jumps additional inertia. So for example, if a platform is moving upwards, then Mario's jump will gain more height. So by doing a cloud cancel like that, you can utilize that cloud's upwards bounce to gain more height from your jumps than you normally would, which is why my backflips went higher than seemed reasonable. Fluffy Bluff 1, this is actually one of the few galaxies, one of the only galaxies, in fact, where I'm not going to be collecting the common medal because it's just too far out of the way. And the reason why is because there's a really big skip I can do here. So I'm going to get up to this tree and to this cloud with 2 clouds in reserve. And there just kind of isn't a death plane here, so you can just kind of jump off the side of the level like this. And with a couple of well-placed clouds, you can make it all the way to the final planet of the level. So, for some strange reason, if you're Cloud Mario and you long jump from the center of a cloud while you're above an abyss, you gain a lot of horizontal speed, and that's what makes that skip possible. Another piece of cloud tech is actually this, where you do a cloud boosted long jump. That's kind of utilizing that upwards bounce mechanic I talked about earlier, where you make a cloud while you're grounded, and then as the cloud's bouncing upwards, you do a long jump, and your long jump gains a lot more height and distance. It looks really cool if you pull it off well. Right, and there's certain stars where you utilize a power-up. It doesn't have to necessarily be for the first time. We'll actually bring you down here to this engine room, where Lava shows off the power-up to you. You're not even allowed to use it, you're just allowed to stare at it. And this room has literally no purpose, so we're just gonna yeet on out of here as soon as we get to the text boxes. Here's also some new movement. Okay, so now we're going to be heading off to the first castle boss level. There's one at the end of each of the first 6 worlds, which is all I'm going to be playing through in this run. And they alternate between Bowser Jr. and Bowser stages, and they are usually really hard. So, in Bowser Jr.'s Fiery Flotilla here, there's a very tight thwomp cycle I'm going to want to make. This movement is actually really easy to die to, or just easy to mess up in general, and missing this cycle loses about 4 seconds. So, we'll see what happens here. Hopefully this goes well. Alright, made it onto the thwomp, and we made it up here. So I made the cycle. And this boss planet just has a huge gravity field for some reason, so I can actually skip the entire rest of the level by just long jumping towards it. And what I just did there is what's known as a frame-perfect ground pound, where if you spin and press Z on the same frame, you can cancel the spin and enter a ground pound state, and that's useful for being able to ground pound out of a long jump. So now I'm going to be fighting Gobblegut, which is a very tricky boss to learn and get good at. Because normally Gobblegut's supposed to dig his face into the ground, but you can actually attack the bellyache bulges while he's in the air instead of waiting for them to pass by, and this is a really hard fight to get down. So right there I just hit bulges 5, 6, and 1 in order, so on this next phase, I'm actually going to be running down and in a straight line so that Gobblegut follows me and gets closer to the planet. And I'm going to turn around right here and get the last 3 bulges back to back to back. Alright, perfect Gobblegut. I just made that fight look way easier than it actually is. That fight takes so much time to get down, and in this category you actually have to do it twice, which is double the fun. Gobblegut is basically the kind of fight where if one thing goes wrong, it's like a 20-second time loss right away. Which, at a high level, is a really big mistake. But yeah, that went pretty well, and that is the end of World 1. So, at the end of each boss level is going to be a Grand Star, and this is what's going to allow me to go from world to world. And we unfortunately have to sit through this cutscene after each of the first 5 worlds, so get comfortable. So next up is World 2. I actually did that coinless. So you notice that no text boxes for coins or starbits popped up, and that's because neither of them were in my inventory. If there were some in my inventory, then they would have popped up. I'll point it out again if I happen to accidentally end a level with starbits. So World 2 is actually, I think, still the shortest world segment in the run. We only get 7 stars, including the Grand Star in this segment. But there's some pretty interesting levels in here. So first we're going to go to Puzzle Plank, which I'm sure you all recognize the music from. It's a pretty famous track. This level is mostly movement-centered, with a couple of small details I'll point out here and there as we go along. And this is a level where it's super easy to... This is one of those levels where it's actually super easy to lose seconds without realizing it. Because obviously there's a bunch of big tricks in this game, but just like every other game, movement is very important. So on this next planet, I'm going to skip going to the bottom half of it by just backflipping to this launch star, and now would be a really good time to talk about spin heights. So when you do a spin in this game and you want to gain height, you actually want to be holding A. I don't think the game tells you this anywhere. A lot of jumps are a lot easier or even just possible when you hold A as opposed to not holding A. Also, another really weird difference is that with Mario, it's actually better to spin with the Wii remote, but with Luigi, who you're not going to see in this run, unfortunately, it's actually better to spin with the nunchuck. He gains more height that way. And now we're heading off to this last puzzle planet here. Like I said, most of that stuff is really straightforward. This planet's gravity is really weird. And so sometimes you can stomp these pieces more than one time with a single ground pound, and we have no idea why or how to manipulate it. I didn't get it either of those 2 times. I have a chance to get it here, but it's, again, pretty random. And it's honestly pretty rare that I get it, so it's not a huge deal. And now you have to fight this little mini-boss from Galaxy 1. We're a big advocate for killing the animals, by the way. And that's Puzzle Plank. So after this star, Laba's actually going to spend some time talking about a pretty important part of routing this game, actually, and that is the Grand World Map. So in addition to the individual world maps you have that allow you to go from galaxy to galaxy, you also have this bigger map that allows you to go from world to world. So, let's say I'm in World 5 and I want to go to World 1, which is a situation that can happen. Instead of having to backtrack through each and every world, I can just zoom out to this Grand World Map and go straight from World 5 to World 1. And I'm not going to be world jumping until midway through World 3, but it's still a really helpful tool to have at your disposal. Alright, so in Hytale Falls 1, we're introduced to the first Yoshi-specific power-up, which is the Dash Pepper. It makes him run really, really fast. And also, for some reason, he can just climb up vertical walls, because Nintendo logic. It's worth noting that if you bonk on a wall head-on as you're traveling up a slope with Dash Yoshi, you fall all the way down, and so that can lose a lot of time. And the place where that's most likely to happen is on the second planet. So, the Dash Pepper's effects, this is one of the few power-ups where the effects will actually persist between launch stars, so I'm going to try to make it last as long as possible. Which means right here I'm actually going to be heading up the left path because there's an extra Dash Pepper here, which requires me to do this really tight squeeze there. And just having that extra Dash Pepper makes me in this state for longer. And I'm also going to be grabbing this upcoming Dash Pepper a bit later than you might think I should. So coming up is a really, really weird infinite flutter strat. I'm going to jump off this platform as it's lowering while I still have Dash Pepper momentum. And by holding specific angles, I can actually sort of convert that into forwards infinite fluttering momentum, which means I can get all the way over here. And this combo metal snag is pretty difficult, so using a shake here makes it a little bit easier. And don't blink. So an important note about Yoshi in this game that I haven't yet talked about is when you dismount off of Yoshi in this game, you maintain all the momentum you had going into the dismount. So that ending strat you saw there is that logic applied to dismounting off of Dash Yoshi while he's traveling up a really steep slope. And as you saw there, you get a lot of momentum from that, which makes for a really cool ending strat. So up next, we're going to be heading to Cosmic Cove Galaxy, the first sort of calming level of the run. Believe it or not, there is actually a lot to this level. There's more than meets the eye, and it's actually in terms of how routing this level works. So I'm going to be collecting both the first main star here and the secret star. The secret star requires feeding 15 coins to a Hungry Luma, and I'm actually going to be doing that while doing Cosmic Cove 1, and I'll explain why later. So at the start here, I'm going to make a quick detour over here to grab this Koopa Shell and some Star Bits. When you kill Snoodles after shooting them with Star Bits, they give you coins instead of Star Bits. And I'm going to need to do that twice for this route. And you're probably wondering why I'm using the shell instead of spinning underwater. Because if you've seen Galaxy 1 speedruns, you know you can just spam spins underwater like crazy. In this game, they actually added a cooldown between underwater spins, so it's actually better to just swim with the shell. Which is nice because you have to do significantly less exercise to begin with. And also with the shell, you get to do some really cool jumps out of the water, like you're going to see in a little bit. Alright, so due to the kind of the positioning of everything in this level, the way this route is going to work out is I'm actually going to go ahead and hit the switch to freeze the lake. And then the Hungry Luma is right next to the switch, so I'm going to make a quick detour over there and feed the Hungry Luma. But once I finish feeding this Hungry Luma, I'm actually not going to take its launch star. And I'm just going to head over to the waterfalls and just get Cosmic Cove 1. Guys, due to the way everything's placed in this level, it just works out better to do it this way. And so I'm just going to ditch the launch star as soon as it spawns. Okay. So now we're coming up on an important memory hit tip in this run. So, if you haven't noticed by now, what I've been doing for most of the Star Select menus is I'm pointing my Wii Remote off screen, and if there's a gray or cleared out star, which is basically a star I haven't done yet, in the menu that I want to select, doing that and then mashing A allows me to automatically select the star. This is actually a scenario where you want to avoid that happening, because if I accidentally select Cosmic Cove 2, then I won't have access to the Hungry Luma launch star that I want to have access to, so I'd have to sit through the level intro cutscenes and then exit course, which would waste about 30 seconds. So I just have to remember to point at the screen and select Cosmic Cove 1. And if you have a really crappy pointer, then sometimes you can just select Cosmic Cove 2 anyways. But we're good. And I don't need to refeed the Hungry Luma. The launch star is going to actually remain where it was, so I can just make a direct beeline over to the launch star. And this is the cooldown between spins I was talking about. You have to wait for that Luma to go back into Mario's hat before you can spin again while underwater. In Galaxy 1, that wasn't actually the case. So I'm just grabbing some Star Bits along the way here because I'm going to want to use them for a strat that's coming up. So if you remember Galaxy 1, you probably remember that the bunnies in that game suck. This is the only bunny in this game. And there's actually a pretty cool fast strat for it that I'm going to attempt here. This strat is actually somewhat finicky and requires good aim with the pointer. Alright, so what you're supposed to do for that bunny is you're supposed to go over to the left and hit that blue switch, which freezes the lake and allows you to skate. And you're supposed to do that to catch the bunny, because otherwise you just don't move fast enough. But you can actually, instead, just shoot the bunny with Star Bits, and for some reason it just runs the wrong direction, and it just runs right towards you, which saves a really good amount of time. probably up to 10 seconds. Alright, so remember that toad I told you to keep in mind for later? This is where he's going to be important. So this is the bank toad, and what he does is if you deposit star bits into him in one save file, it actually stores this across all 3 save files. So I'm actually going to be able to withdraw these star bits from another file into this file. And these are the star bits I'm going to be using to unlock Hungry Luma Galaxies, which means I don't actually have to collect star bits in any level. Hence the reason why I'm going to be able to avoid having to get those text boxes. And you might be wondering why I'm even bothering to do this, because the process for unlocking Hungry Luma Galaxies does take a while, but it's because the stars you get from unlocking the Hungry Luma Galaxies are usually really fast, and more than make up for the amount of time it takes to unlock them. And the same goes for Comet Stars, because some of these Comet Medals I've been getting are really out of the way. But in the end, it will be worth it. And actually, this is a really great example of stars being worth it to unlock, because the star I'm about to do here is, I think, the shortest non-green star in the entire game. In-game time, it takes under 20 seconds. And this is yet another star that I feel like kind of speaks for itself. So I'm just going to kind of let you enjoy the movement here. It looks really flashy if done properly. And that's the level. Like I said, really fast star. Definitely worth it for any percent. And here's going to be an interesting overlapping of events. So because I just collected Honeybloom's secret, Lava's going to bring me down to the bottom of the starship in order to see an NPC be here. But because I just collected 15 stars, I'm actually going to get a letter from the male toad for a star that I'm not actually going to collect. And so it's going to work me straight up from the bottom of the starship to the male toad, and that actually saves a few seconds of travel time. And I'll be doing that again one more time in the run. So I'm actually going to do Honeybloom 1. For the longest time, we used to consider this star too slow for the route, but believe it or not, doing this star in place of Supermassive 1 is actually faster in terms of saving world map cutscenes. Even though it does take longer in game time. This entire level is in 2D, so there's not really much you can do in terms of sequence breaks, so most of this level is just movement. There is one piece of tech I need to talk about, though. So in this section, you're supposed to use the bee mushroom to land on these clouds and flowers. You're not normally supposed to stand on them if you don't have it, but you have a few frames where you can jump off of them like that, and I'm going to use that to get through this section without the bee mushroom. Got that. That jump is a lot scarier than it looks. Because if you miss it, then you're basically just going to fall all the way down and lose a lot of time. And right here, I have no choice but to use the bee mushroom because I need it to get through this section of the level. And Bee Mario is very slow, which is very unfortunate. So I'm actually going to intentionally hit this choppa here so that I can get rid of the power here and get to this whole section a little bit quicker. Alright. So that went really, really well. And the last portion of this level is just going to be flying around with the bee mushroom. So there was a question in chat asking how much I need to farm starbits between runs. So what a lot of Galaxy 2 runners will do is they'll actually have a save file with starbits and the bank toad on an SD card, and then between runs, we just delete the save that's in the Wii System memory, and then copy the SD card save over to Wii System memory so that we don't actually have to farm in between runs. Which is really, really useful. Alright, that was a really good Honeybloom 1. This is actually a gold split. Yeah, that was a really, really solid level overall. There's a lot that can go wrong in that level, so to have it go that well is really, really good. Alright, so now we have just enough stars to get to the boss level of World 2. Most of the world routes are going to work out like that. So up next is Bowser's Lava Lair. This is the first of the 3 Bowser stages in the run. And there's a lot of really small skips in this level that add up over time. And that makes this, in my opinion, one of the most satisfying levels to play properly. But there's also a lot that can easily go wrong. And this is also one of the first levels where health management is going to become an issue because there's going to be a decent amount of lava boosting to do some skips. So at the start here, you're actually supposed to kill this Magic Koopa to make a pole star appear so you can get to the next planet, but gravity fields in this game are abnormally large, so you can just kind of long jump there instead. And a similar thing here, you're supposed to use a spring, but you can actually just side flip up here. And now I'm going to actually take a slight detour here to grab this Life Mushroom, which adds 3 units of health to my already 3 units of health. At this point, it is very important that I don't go below 4 health, because there's a skip at the end of this level that requires me to have at least 4 health. And if I lose these extra 3 units of health, I can't get them back. So right here, I'm going to do a little lava boost here to skip having to kill that Hammer Bro. And make it all the way down here. I'm going to turn the camera here to get the Womps off camera so that I manipulate their cycles. And I'm going to double jump into the lava here to store a triple jump as soon as I land. And that allows me to get the coma medal a little bit quicker. Nice, I got the yeet there, as I like to call it. So I jumped off that Womp's head as it was rising upwards, which allowed me to get some momentum there. And that's how I made it all the way to the meteor. So here's the skip that I needed 4 HP for. I can skip a bunch of snake block auto-scrollers by just kind of jumping off over here and lava boosting. So an interesting mechanic about lava boosting is that when you hit the lava and then land on regular ground, normally you have to do a short little bounce before you can actually regain control of Mario. But if you do that short bounce and then hit the lava again, the game will remember that you did that short bounce, and so the second time you land, it will immediately allow you to regain control of Mario. So that's how I was able to immediately long jump across those statues. And now it's time for the first Bowser fight of the run. All 3 Bowser fights in this game, as they usually are in Mario games, are very similar. It just gets slightly harder each time. So the way these fights work is you dodge Bowser's attacks, he spawns some meteors, and then he punches the planet, and then while he's trying to pull his fist out, you ground pound the meteors into him. This fight isn't too exciting for the most part. Really the only ways you can save time are by manipulating Bowser to punch sooner, and by ground pounding the meteors in a way that allows them to travel the shortest distance to Bowser. And this fight is relatively simplistic. It will get a bit more complex as we go through the game. It is very important that you don't miss hits, because if you miss a cycle in these fights, it loses about 20 seconds. Alright. I could have actually gone for that closer meteor. Bowser can actually punch out meteors, but I thought he would be too close to that one, but he wasn't. So for these next 2 hits, Bowser's going to breathe fire before he punches, and I actually want to pay attention to where this fire attack ends, because that will be where he starts aiming his next punch. And again, that allows me to manipulate him into punching right away. Again, I could have gone for another meteor there, but in situations like that, you kind of have to make a split-second decision, and sometimes it works out, sometimes it doesn't. These Bowser fights often require a lot of thinking on the fly, because they don't usually go the exact same way every time. There we go. And to answer that question in chat, it is technically NG+ to use Big Toad, but it's also kind of just the standard for running this game, because it would be a pain to have to actually farm star bits everywhere. And that is it for Lava Lair, and that is also it for the World 2 segment of this run. Which means we're going to have to sit through all those cutscenes again. Yay! And I say the end of the World 2 segment. During some backtracking sessions, I will actually be returning to World 2. But that's not until way later. So this is the end of, like, getting the World 2 Grand Star segment, is what I mean by that. So now we're heading into where I would say the run really starts to ramp up in difficulty. Because at this point in the run, mistakes become a lot more common, and they're also become a lot more costly. And it's also at this point that comets start to appear in levels. And again, I'll get more into those once they actually start appearing. Something I should actually bring up while I'm in World 3 is that if you were here for my No Kid Hungry run back in June, the route has actually been slightly modified since then. There's no new stars or anything, it's just that the order of them was swapped around. And in World 3's case, it's actually going to be, I'm going to be doing the first backtracking session earlier, and I'm also going to be cutting out one of the stars and saving it for later. But for the first few stars here, it's going to be the same. And I'll get to the differences once they actually show up. So first I'm going to go to Cloudy Court, and this level has a lot more cloud boosting action, so if you missed it, here's your chance to see it all again. There's not too much to this level. The first big thing I need to talk about is what I like to call 4 cloud strats, which I'm going to be doing twice in this level. First of them is going to be like right at the start of the level here. So I'm going to cloud boost into a cloud flower, and that will actually replenish my cloud stock and allows me to use the remaining 3 clouds to cross an additional distance. Essentially meaning I use 4 clouds, hence the name. So I'm going to do that right here. And I'm going to try to make it all the way over to these drums. And I need to face this drum here so I can ledge grab it and climb up so I don't have to waste clouds. And then I can use all 3 clouds here to skip that launch star and make it all the way over here. So now I'm coming up on the 2D section, and at the end of this 2D section, there's a couple of crushers that have a comet medal in the middle of them. And if I move fast enough, I can get the comet medal and make it through the crushers before they close. And this is actually somewhat tight, and this is a decent amount of time if we fail it. Also, here's another 4 cloud strat. And it allows me to kind of get over this wall here. So here we go. I might still be able... Okay, I'm gonna ditch it. So I was supposed to do a backflip instead of a single jump there to get to the comet medal, and once I messed that up, I probably wouldn't have been able to make it. So that's a pretty annoying time loss. It's about 10 seconds. It's okay, though. It's much better. It would have been... I definitely made the smarter choice in that case to just not go for the cycle, because if I had gone for it and died, like I said, getting crushed in this game is a one-hit KO. So I would have gotten all the way back to the start of the 2D section, which would have been an even worse time loss, so I definitely made the smarter decision there. Alright, and now we're going to be heading off to Freezy Flake, and this is the first of a couple of stars where I'm actually going to be able to have fun with you guys in the chat. So this is the first of 3 stars where we challenge the Chimp to a mini-game where we try to beat his high score. And we have a time limit to do this, and this timer is fixed, so you can't stop the clock early by getting the high score. And it doesn't actually lose time to get as high of a score as possible. So if chat wants to guess what score I'm going to get on this minigame, here are the rules. You can only guess in multiples of 10, and you have to guess as low as 500 and as high as 900. And my rule is if no one gets it exactly right, whoever is closest wins. Alright, getting that early fireball on that Goomba statue there is actually pretty tough. It requires a essentially blind throw. So here's the pipe to the minigame. And, yeah, this is just kind of an auto-scroller, essentially, because you have to wait for the timer to expire. And the patterns you can get from this are technically fixed, but the rotation of them is randomly determined. It can be one of 3 different rotations. But once you get a particular rotation, it's fixed for the rest of the minigame, so now I have muscle memory for the entire rest of this pattern. Also, you probably noticed I'm skating backwards. If you press Z while you're skating, you can skate backwards. It doesn't affect your physics at all, but it looks cool. And I just like to show it off. It's kind of become muscle memory for me at this point. I accidentally hit a spiky gummit there. Alright, so whoever either guesses exactly 780 or closest to 780 would win. And if you missed your opportunity there or you didn't get it right, there's another opportunity later on, so don't fret over it. Okay, so the next star I'm actually going to do is Freezy Flake 1, and this star doesn't necessarily have any crazy tricks in it, but it is still noteworthy because I'm going to be on a very tight timer for most of it. And you'll see what I mean very shortly. And once again, I'm pointing my Wii Remote off screen here, so the clear star I want to select is Freezy Flake 1, so I just mash A and I automatically select it. And since I've already selected this star, I can skip the level intro cutscenes. Right. So, I'm going to try to make it all the way to the Common Medal in the next section with this Fire Flower. And I have maybe a couple of seconds of leeway. Unfortunately, the movement isn't too complicated. So, I should be making it. If you miss this, you lose about 20 seconds. Okay, barely made it in time, because I missed the first shot there. I guess I still made it. So if I had missed that, I would have had to grab that Fire Flower, and then blow out that wall to get the Common Medal, and then I would have had to wait for the next Fire Flower to spawn. Instead, I could just take this Fire Flower and go straight to the Bowser statue. And yeah, so there was a bit of some scuffy stuff in that star, but at least I made the Fire Flower cycle. That's really the big thing you have to keep in mind there. So now we're going to get a special visit from everybody's favorite brother, Luigi, and we're going to immediately ditch him, as we almost always do in these games. So from this point onwards, you're going to see Luigi appear at the start of various stars, and you can switch to playing as him for that one star. And Luigi does run faster and jump higher than Mario, but he both talks to you before you switch to him and then also after you finish the level, so it loses too much time to switch to him for the amount of time he would save. And since you can't switch between Mario and Luigi freely until after you cleared Galaxy Generator for the first time, that means this entire run is going to be Mario only. Which is nice because this category is just more suited for Mario anyways. So, you're going to see me turn the camera a few times to the left here at the start of Honey Halls 1. That's because if moving platforms and objects are not on camera, they don't move. So what I was trying to do there, and what I would have been able to do if I didn't get hit there, would manipulate the cycles of these platforms. So that I can make a slightly faster cycle than what you're going to see me make here, but because I got hit there, I'm going to have to miss out on it. Which is okay, because I can get a checkpoint here. So you can just barely catch that red platform as it's going off to the left there, if you do that first section perfectly. Interestingly enough, those first two platforms are cycle-based, but this and the next platform actually only start moving once you enter a certain zone. And again, because you can long jump in this game, you can skip having to wait on most of them. And then you have the Common Medal platform, which is really, really weird. I believe it's really hard to remember. I believe it stops moving once you enter the launch star, so only your movement up until then matters. So it is actually possible to be too early. And I have to be careful here because these Octoboos are scary. Alright, and we have Yoshi here, so you can probably guess what's about to happen. And I'm grabbing the Bullberry here. The Bullberry eliminates floors underneath you that otherwise don't exist. Obviously here I don't really need it, but I mostly just grabbed it for safety. So something very important just happened, and that's that I got my 4th star from World 3, which means at this point, comets are actually going to start spawning in galaxies where I've collected the comet medal and have a certain number of comet medals, and I've met the comet medal number requirement for them. Those are the 2 big requirements for spawning comets in this game, which is nice because comets in Galaxy 1 actually work on cycles, which means route screw-ups are much more costly. But in this game, when you unlock a comet in a galaxy, it stays there. So that makes routing this game much, much easier. And for now, I'm just going to be kind of letting comets build up for a little bit, and then I'll be making several backtracking sessions throughout this run to clean up comet stars, because again, they are usually really fast stars that are worth collecting. So Honey Halls 2, this is essentially just a bunch of long jumps. So now would actually be a really good time to talk about the specifics behind long jumping, because it's actually a bit more complicated than you might think. So every time you initiate a long jump from a run, you want to press Z and A at roughly the same time, because then Mario doesn't enter a crouch state before he starts long jumping. And as a result, he won't lose momentum if he starts running again. And also when you're chaining long jumps together, there's a small frame window where you have to press A optimally. And it doesn't matter too much for each individual long jump, but over the course of a run, it can definitely make a difference for someone who is paying attention to their long jumps versus someone who isn't. So yeah, this level is mostly just straightforward, literally. There's not too much to say about it other than that. So next we're going to be unlocking the World 3 Hungry Luma, which will spawn Beat Block Galaxy. And for some reason, this Hungry Luma's last star bit always shoots out later than the others, which is actually convenient because since you can move while you're feeding a Hungry Luma, I can set up a backflip straight to the button so that after the cutscene ends, I land on the button a little bit earlier. There's also another bit of Hungry Luma tech I'm going to do here. So while I'm talking to the Hungry Luma here, I'm actually going to be holding B, which is the button you use to shoot out star bits. And this will make it so that once the text boxes are cleared, the game will only shoot star bits if it's pointed at the Hungry Luma. And that was that last star bit I was talking about. So, that basically makes it so that, that tech I was talking about where you hold B, that basically makes it so that it's easier to not lose time from missing the Hungry Luma. And it also makes it so that you don't miss any star bits. So beat block is an interesting gimmick to it, where every 8 beats of the song, the blocks will switch between the yellow ones being active and the green ones being active, which makes this level very, very cycle-based. It's kind of still a bunch of long jumps like the previous star, but it's a lot tighter here. And if I mess up a cycle here, I basically have to improvise, so let's hope that doesn't happen. This level's been giving me a lot of trouble lately, so let's see what happens. I'm actually going to intentionally play it slow in this first section so I don't get caught on this first set of blocks, like that, because that would mess up my movement. But now I can just play fast. Alright, so far so good. And then this last section just has some silver stars to collect. This is the scariest part, especially this final long jump coming up here. Alright, perfect beat block 1. Alright, so at this point you're going to be seeing the route divergence that I was talking about earlier. That's different than my No Kid Hungry run. So in the previous route, we would go ahead and clear out the rest of the World 3 stars I would get, and then do the backtracking to World 1 for some comets. I'm actually going to do that now. So I'm going to use my handy-dandy Grand World map here to go straight from World 3 to World 1 once all this is said and done. And I'm going to be, so the reason why I'm doing this now is because I won't have quite enough stars to unlock the path to Bowser Jr.'s fearsome fleet by just getting stars in World 3 without having to go out of my way. So I'm actually backtracking here just to get some stars that I couldn't get earlier. So I'm unlocking another Hungry Luma Galaxy here. This one's going to be a flip swap. And the gimmick with this Hungry Luma is actually very similar to the one in B Block, where every time you spin, it will switch between the red and the blue platforms being available. But the difference with this level is that as the platforms switch, they kind of rise upwards in a way, which means if you can jump off of them as they're rising upwards, you can get a huge amount of height to your jump. And so I'm essentially going to be going for these super jumps where I long jump off these platforms as they're rising up. This is a very easy level to die to for this reason, though, because missing these super jumps don't save a whole lot of time, and missing them can lead to death. Especially this first one. This first one is really tricky. Alright, that's a jump cancel, by the way. Oh, okay, I really want to show this off, so let's try that again. Come on. There we go. So that's probably the hardest one for me. The rest of them aren't too bad. Another thing you can do, which you might have, I think I did it earlier, I don't actually remember. I'm going to do it right here. You can cancel a spin with a long jump or a single jump. I'm actually going to do that again here so I don't lose momentum when I do this long jump. Oh, boy. So I meant to get more momentum from that. It's fine, though. Okay, so very scuffed, but at least it was deathless. Really, not dying on that star is all I can ask for in a no reset. Okay, so again, at this point I'm just kind of letting comments build up. So, part of the logic behind this route, I don't quite know how to explain it, is by overlapping Comet Medal unlock and Galaxy unlock cutscenes on the world map. I don't exactly know how to explain it. Just know that the route I'm doing is fast, and that it saves time. That's why I'm doing these 3 stars in a pretty weird order here, because it might seem like there's additional world map movements. So Yoshi Star Comet is the first of 4 Romp Comets in the run, and these are a new type of comet to Galaxy 2, where you essentially have to kill a bunch of enemies within a time limit, and you actually get to use the Rainbow Star to do that here. And the Rainbow Star makes you invincible, but also, while you're on the ground, you start to build up this sort of P-speed. And if you run into a wall or slow down in any way, you lose this P-speed. So my goal for this level is to maximize that as much as possible, and try to not lose any speed. There is another thing about this level that's also annoying. So I mentioned in Honey Halls 1 that when a moving object or platform isn't on camera, it doesn't move or update, and that actually applies to enemies as well, including these Spinies. So if a Spiny dies and then goes off camera, the counter doesn't actually update until the Spiny officially dies off camera. And this has screwed over many players to where they get to the end and they see 29 out of 30 Spinies and they wonder what the heck happened to the last one, when really all you have to do is just turn the camera around a bunch of times. That wasn't too bad. I just accidentally backflipped there, so... you need to actually have a decent amount of acceleration before you can long jump in this game. And if you try to long jump too early, then that happens, where you just backflip. It's pretty annoying. But overall, that wasn't too bad, aside from just missing a couple of Spinies. And the last comment I'm going to get here is Sky Station's comment. And so this is the first speedy comet of the game, or as Nintendo likes to call them, Speed Space Run Comets. And this is a timed challenge of Sky Station 1, but it's also a lot shorter because it cuts out most of the planets, so it's a lot more worth it. And you're gonna notice that I only have 20 seconds to start with, which is nowhere near enough time to finish this level. But there's actually various clocks scattered throughout the level that add 10 seconds to my time, and I need to collect at least one, but I'm gonna go out of my way to collect a couple others. So as you can see, I'm already on this last planet here, and now I'm just going to be heading straight to Pee-wee Piranha. And my strategy for Pee-wee Piranha is going to be the same as it was in Sky Station 1, where I essentially ground pound Pee-wee's shell instead of spinning at it. And I have Star Bits again reserved so I can stun him for this first hit. So there's actually a risk factor in using those Star Bits. If you shoot Pee-wee right as a cutscene is about to start, then what can happen is that Pee-wee becomes unable to be interacted with in any way, and the cutscene never starts, which essentially soft locks the fight. If that happens in Sky Station Combat, you have to exit the level and re-enter, but if that happens in Sky Station 1, you actually have to reset, which is really funny. Fortunately, it's pretty easy to avoid. And so that's all the backtracking I'm going to be doing for now, so I'm going to go back to World 3 and finish it up. And again, using the Grand World Map here, instead of having to go all the way through Worlds 1 and 2 to get to World 3, I can just do that. So there's 2 more stars I need to get here before I can unlock the boss level to World 3. And first we're going to do Tall Trunk 1. This is a very cool level with a lot of really cool jumps and tricks in it. And it's a really satisfying level to pull off, but it's also really difficult for everything to go well. So on this first planet, you're supposed to use Yoshi and the Blimp Fruit to climb up this tree, but that's really slow, and it turns out Mario's acrobatic skills are really useful here, and his jumps are just good enough to make it up the tree this way instead. Which is slightly faster. Spin blocked on the wall there. And that happened again. This jump is really annoying. This tree climb is super finicky. And what happened there was I tried to side flip, but side flipping is impossible in this game, so it didn't work. So that wasn't too great. But now I can get on Yoshi and start abusing him like we always do. Such as right here for this backwards facing infinite flutter. If you miss that Comet Medal, it's actually really bad, because then you have to flutter forward to get it, but then that kills your ability to go backwards, so you have to grab the Blimp Fruit, and it's really slow. And I can just grab all 5 of these starships here in one fall. And I'm ditching Yoshi here, first of all because it allows me to get to the launch star a little bit quicker, but also because now I can do this ground pound in order to get down this long shaft a lot quicker. And Yoshi will just be in his egg ready for me. And here I have no choice but to climb up using the Blimp Fruit. And I'm going to try to stick to the inner edges as much as possible, because you take a slightly tighter path with that. And right here I'm actually going to shake out of Blimp Fruit mode using the nunchuck instead of the Wii Remote, so I can keep the pointer pointed at the next Blimp Fruit and not have to worry about it spazzing out. And that's Tall Trunk 1. So now we're coming up on this next comet actually used to be the first comet we would do in the run before this reroute happened, Cloudy Core Comet. So in case you haven't figured it out, comets are essentially just modified versions of galaxies with some challenge added to them. And as I mentioned before, the requirements to unlock a comet are to have a certain number of comet medals total and also have the comet medal for that galaxy. So if I grab a comet medal in a galaxy that doesn't even have a comet, it's to add to that total. And for this run, I'm going to need a total of 32 comet medals. So this is the first Cosmic Clone Comet in the game, and this actually unlocks every Cosmic Clone Comet in the game, so I have to do this star now, essentially. And in this first section, I can actually prevent them from spawning if if you just barely touch the edges of the starships, you can prevent the Cosmic Clones from spawning, but I didn't get it there. It doesn't really matter. But now we're heading off into the 2D section, which is where they really start to become annoying. Because if you mess up a wall jumping in this section, they will also mess up the wall jump, and so when you try to get back up, they're all in the way. So you have to be really careful here. We should be good. There we go. Now just to make sure I don't die here. That was kind of slow. So now I have just enough stars to access Bowser Jr.'s Fearsome Fleet, which is where Grand Star 3 will come from. And let's just say, if you thought the infinite flutters you've seen in this run so far were crazy, you have not seen anything yet. Because Bowser Jr.'s Fearsome Fleet probably contains the craziest set of infinite flutters in this entire run. So what I'm going to go for is a strat called the Question Block Flutter. It's very infamous. This level is normally a bunch of auto-scrolling platforms and opening cages with bullet bills and stuff, but you can skip pretty much all of it, because the entire level's one height, and you get Yoshi right at the start. So what I'm going to be doing here is a set of infinite flutters that gets me to an asteroid that, for some reason, has collision, and then I'm going to flutter to a question block in the middle of where the airships normally spawn, and then I have to get a precise angle and flutter from the question block through the comet metal, and then go underneath one of these structures you see here, and then I have to manage my height and dismount onto the final platform. It's really hard to explain in words, so hopefully you'll understand why it's so tricky, and you get no checkpoints in this, so if I die at all, I go back to the beginning. Alright, so here we go. This second flutter is actually pretty tricky because it's super easy to overshoot or undershoot the block. That should be good though. And here's the infamous flutter of the three. That is not a good angle. There's only a small number of angles that'll work for this. Then I have to go just low enough to make it underneath the structure. And then just high enough. That was barely high enough. So that was pretty sloppy, but at least I didn't die. You have just enough height to make that all work out. It's really scary. But now we have to fight Mega Hammer, which is another pointer-based boss, aka really fun. So at the start here, I'm going to get back on Yoshi, and I'm going to kind of back up a little bit because I'm going to set up her quick hit on these first two weak spots. Like that. And I actually don't want to do that here because I want to actually cancel one of Mega Hammer's attacks to net time save. So I'm going to wait right here, and fire off the Bull Bill, and then go into the Sling Star. So when Mega Hammer was rising his hammers there, he was getting ready to smash them together, which would have cost a little bit of time, so I just canceled that attack. And right here, I'm lowering 3 bullet bills over here. I'm going to use 2 of them to take out this back weak spot, and I'm going to get this third one in Yoshi's mouth. And I'm going to hope that this stores through the cutscene here. It's random if it does or not. And it did. So you're supposed to wait for Mega Hammer to lower its head so you can fire these bullet bills at the cockpit, but the hitbox is always active, and a side flip and a full flutter is enough to reach it. So this is actually the only Grand Star cutscene that Yoshi can get in on, but in the famous words of Carl Sagan 42, Yoshis are tools to be used and discarded. So that's it for World 3. And it's gonna be a pretty long while before I get my next Grand Star, because World 4, this is another big instance of the route change I was talking about earlier. So not only am I going to complete World 4 in this Grand Star segment, I'm also going to be doing a bit of backtracking midway through here that used to be done after World 4. And you'll see it all makes sense as once I get midway through this segment. So as a result, World 4 is now the longest world segment in the run by a couple minutes. So, when you start World 4, you have a couple of options. The game wants you to go to Supermassive, but conveniently there's a fork in the road where you can feed a Hungry Luma instead, and that galaxy is just better anyways. So, we're going to actually unlock Sweet Mystery, and not go to Supermassive at all. So, if you remember... Fearsome Fleet and how it was just a bunch of infinite fluttering, this level is more or less the same thing, except it's less terrifying. And most of the flutters aren't nearly as precise. If you watch the IL for this level, it's super sick, because one thing that's cool about infinite fluttering, so I haven't mentioned this yet, if you're in the air for longer than 10 seconds, you lose almost all of your momentum and are reduced to a very slow crawl forwards or sideways. You can restart that timer by bouncing off of an enemy or an object. And so the IL of this star essentially completes it in one flutter, and it looks really sick. So I would highly recommend checking it out, but I'm not going to be doing any of that crazy shenanigans here. Most of these infinite flutters are pretty self-explanatory. This first one I'm going to be doing it with a bit of a blind angle. I'm going to try to make it go all the way over to the Comet Medal. I do not like this angle at all. Alright. So I actually could have made that flutter go all the way over to the Comet Medal, but I got stopped short. And now I can just use infinite fluttering to skip over sections I'd otherwise have to platform through. And I'm starting most of these flutters with a shake because that gives Yoshi a little bit of extra acceleration right off the bat. And here I'm going to do an infinite flutter to skip having to hit all those flip switch panels to get a launch star. And I have to be really careful with this infinite flutter because if I fall at any point, then I could accidentally land on an invisible floor instead of dying, and that's a really big time loss. Because it takes like 20 additional seconds to find a ledge you can fall off of. But thankfully that didn't go too horribly. Alright. And I grabbed some star bits here because I was actually a little bit short after depositing from the Bank Toad. So I should have enough to just get the remaining star bits from Starship Mario visits. So next I'm going to go to Flipsville, which is a really, really cool galaxy for speedruns. And there's a lot of really cool sequence breaks in Flipsville 1 that you can do. And I think you're really going to enjoy the route I'm going to use to complete this level. So, at the start here, it doesn't actually matter if I get a jump cancel or not, because I have to wait for this enemy to get out of the way anyways. But once it does, I can ground pound this grating to get over here. I'm going to back up onto this wall, and then use this to get all the way over to the Comet Medal, which is somewhat awkward. And I can just long jump straight from here to the second planet. And doing this actually unloads a kill plane, which means I can get up onto this roof. And then backflip and slide off this roof to get some backwards momentum. So I'm falling with a very, very slight amount of backwards momentum, and once I get close enough to the boss planet, I just spin and enter its gravity field. And that saves a really, really big amount of time. So here is a Glamdozer. So this boss is actually super easy to get down. Glamdozer's entire body is vulnerable, so I can just camp out underneath its chin and wait for it to become vulnerable, and then I can just get insta hits. So yeah, very, very entertaining level both to play and to watch. So Flipsville 1 is actually going to be the first of 3 stars where I'm going to be getting a Mail Toad letter from Totally Not Rosalina. And you get 50 star bits from each of these 3 Mail Toad letters, and these will account for 150 of the star bits I actually need for Hungry Luma Galaxies in this run. As the next Hungry Luma I need to unlock is actually Flash Black in World 6, which requires 1800, and I only have close to 1650. but the remaining 150 are going to come from these mail-toed letters. So here's the first one. So next I'm going to be doing Cliffsville 2, and Nintendo did not try with this level at all, basically, because you're supposed to use the spin drill on these first 2 planets, but you can very easily skip it on both planets. And they put little effort into making it so you couldn't do that. So for example, on this first planet, you can just jump around the wall here and go straight to the launch star instead of digging all the way around. I'm going to use this enemy to bounce off to make it a little bit safer. And then here you can wall jump on the structure, which you shouldn't be able to do, but you just can. And you can get up to this pipe quicker. Alright, this first room is, this silver star section is incredibly tight. Alright, so by getting that fast move into the spin drill there, I can beat this cycle here, which means I'm now on the optimal cycle for Cliffsville 2. So this part's kind of half auto-scroller, half cycle-based. I do have to wait for the cycles to switch, but I also have to make sure I don't miss any. So after I collect this 4th silver star and the gravity switches, I'm going to actually wait before drilling again. Because for some reason, if the gravity switches sooner after this cutscene finishes as opposed to later, that kind of messes with Mario's and the stars' hitboxes in a weird way, to where I just drill here, and Mario instantly grabs the star like that. Normally, I'd have to wait for Mario to fall to the one side of the room, and then I'd have to side flip into the star, which takes a while. But that saves a couple seconds, and that's time save overall, even though you have to wait. So I'm actually going to move forwards in World 4, and we're going to go to Chompworks here. We'll be going back to those 2 galaxies eventually, but for now we're just going to head off to Chompworks. And this first star is kind of just a bunch of auto-scrollers. There's nothing too exciting. There's actually some interesting strategies you can use in this level to speed it up, but this is unfortunately one of the longer stars in the run. So this first planet has a lot to take in. So you're not supposed to normally be able to run up this slope here, but if you run up the very edges of it, you're not affected by the slope's physics. And so I can use that to get up there. And I'm going to try to get this common metal and make it back before the chomps do. And I can lower this platform. I'm going to shoot this Octumba so that its coin doesn't get in the way of the launch star flight. And I'm going to long jump into this launch star so that I can avoid a landing stone on this next planet. Like I said, a lot to take in. And then there's this planet where you just do a few long jumps. So there's actually a really interesting strat on this planet. I'm going to barely touch the left edge of the seesaw to make it lower enough so that this first chomp can actually make it on without breaking. You actually have to do that in a very specific way in order for this strat to work. And unfortunately, there's nothing you can do to speed up this last planet, so it's essentially just an auto-scroller. You also can't make it to this first chomp in time unless you use a 2P. So I haven't mentioned 2P yet. If you have a second Wii remote, they take the form of an orange Luma, and they have some additional things they can do, such as grabbing star bits and coins. They can also kill certain enemies or hold them in place, and that includes these chain chomps. So what they can do on this planet is hold that first chomp in place so that Mario can get to the platform and lower it for that chomp to get on, which can save a good amount of time, but playing with 2 Wii remotes is not exactly intuitive. So I'm just going to be doing this one with one player, because I don't have any friends who want to play with me. And I'm just waiting here, so I'm just killing time by getting some cool momentum jumps off this button. Alright. So yeah, that was a pretty lengthy level, but the nice thing is that it unlocks a couple of really fast stars. So next up, we go from having auto-scrollers to revisiting everybody's least favorite power-up from Galaxy 1, the Spring Mushroom. This is a power-up where you either loved it or you hated it. Unfortunately, you don't have to use it too much in this star because, again, Nintendo's really great at level design, so you can just skip this Spring Mushroom on the first 2 planets entirely, so that's what I'm going to do. You can actually skip it for the entire level, but it's slower to do so on the 3rd planet. And what's really special about this level in particular is there are elevators on the last planet that move on a cycle, but the planet is visible from the first planet, so the cycles are moving while I'm on the first planet, so if I don't have really, really good movement on this first planet, I could miss out on a platform cycle that saves 5 seconds. So either I have to get the jump cancel here or I have really good movement. Alright, that was pretty good, so I should have a shot at it. Thankfully the cycles don't move while you're on this planet. So for some reason, another difference between the Wii Remote and the Nunchuck is that you can if you do a wall jump, you can actually spin sooner after the wall jump if you use the Nunchuck instead of the Wii Remote. So that's what I'm going to use here. Alright, so if I don't do anything incredibly stupid here, I should be able to make this cycle. Let's see here. I have to both make the cycle and stay on it. Oh, and I fell off. It's really, really tight. So I'm not surprised that I missed it. But again, it's not a huge time loss. It's only about 5 seconds. 5 to 6. Alright, so at this point, I'm actually going to, this is another thing that's new to this route, I'm actually going to backtrack to World 2 and do the World 2 and 1 cleanup that would normally take place before World 5. And this is again to save time on world map cutscenes, but also for one other reason that you'll see later. So I'm going to use the Grand World Map to go back to World 2 once I get back onto the button here. So the first star I'm going to do is actually Puzzle Plane Comet. We used to do this star earlier, but I'm going to do it now because it just makes the route work out better. This star actually unlocks every purple coin comet in the game, which is why Sweet Mystery and Flipspell's comets have not yet spawned, which is also why I didn't do them earlier, but once I collect this star, then they will spawn. And so I'll be able to get them when I go back to World 4. And this star is much easier said than done, because it's really hard to make it through all 4 of these, through every group of 4 purple coins without missing one or without slowing down. And you have Cosmic Ones chasing you the entire time. So far so good. Oh, missed one there. I jinxed myself there. I'm also going to be doing a lot of small little hops here because that actually speeds Mario up slightly as opposed to just running. So other than that one missed purple coin and hitting that one cosmic coin, that wasn't too bad. So now purple coin comets are going to start spawning, and I'll be getting those later. But before I go back to World 4, I'm going to do the World 2 and 1 cleanup that used to be saved for way later. So next star I'm going to be doing is Boulder Bowl 1. This star has moved positions in the any percent route like 3 times by now. So we used to do this as star number 15, and then it got moved to after World 4, and now because of this reroute, it's moved to midway through World 4. This star actually has a pretty neat gravity exploit that involves an oversight with the Rock Mushroom's mechanics. So you'll notice there are ramps that Rock Mario can take that allow him to like fly to another planet, but you can cancel a ramp's effect by doing a spin jump onto the ramp, which means Mario can actually jump off the edge of the ramp instead of taking it like he normally would. And by using this mechanic, I can actually enter the gravity field of the second planet, which skips the a planet where you have to kill a bunch of really slow enemies. This skip saves a lot of time. But it also loses a lot of time if you fail it, because you have to redo everything, including getting this combat medal. So let's see if I can get this here. There we go. Alright. So I hit a toad there and recoiled, but I got the skip, which is still good. That's really the big thing that matters. And that's the current fastest way to do that skip. There's multiple ways you can do it. So now I have to fight Rolodillo. This is one of the most finicky bosses in the entire run for a few reasons. This first hit's actually pretty easy, but the second, third, and fourth hits are where this boss really gets annoying, because I'm going to try to chase him while he's trying to chase me, and if I end up in his line of sight, I lose a lot of time, because he does this weird rolling attack. I'm also going to be doing these jump spins to extend the length of Mario's roll, which also just save time and movement anyways. And that allows me to potentially get these hits in one roll. I had a really bad angle there, so I had to cut that roll short. The planet sometimes eats your jumps here as well. So sometimes getting the jumps can be really tricky. So that wasn't a great boss fight, but at least I didn't end up in his line of sight. That loses a massive amount of time if that happens, especially on the first phase. I don't know how I missed the star there. So here's actually another overlapping of events. So because I collected Boulder Bowl 1, I'm going to be brought down to the engine room to see Rock Mario getting unlocked. But because I have now done this star and a star from Chompworks, I'm also going to get a Mail Toad letter for Boulder Bowl letter. Which means I'm going to be warped up out of the engine room to the Mail Toad, similarly to what happened after Honeybloom's Secret. And that once again saves a lot of travel time. So, speaking of Boulder Bowl letter, that's actually what I'm going to do next. And you're actually going to get to see an alternate version of that skip I did in Boulder Bowl 1. Because you can actually do it without Rock Mario as well, and it's much easier. And I can do it for this star because I don't need to get the combat medal here. The only minor hard part about this skip is the long jump across the bridge here, because the camera isn't exactly too great. Alright, I have just enough distance here. And then here I don't even have to do any special setup here. I can just run to the left, long jump, and spin, and I enter the gravity zone. And now I have to do the fun part, which is lure this Goomba over to the Gearmo to get a star from him. And I'm going to intentionally take damage here so that the Goomba stops, and I can manipulate him into not stopping in the middle of the path. Because if a Goomba gets crushed, then it's done. And you only get 2 Goombas on this planet, so if both of them die, you have to redo the mission. Also, the game can just soft lock there on that cutscene for no reason. It's extremely rare, and it's only ever happened to me once, but it can happen, and it really sucks. Thankfully, this game autosave, so if it does happen, it's not the end of the run. And now the next, I believe, 6 or 7 stars are all comets. Which is great and totally not repetitive. And now I have enough star bits to satisfy the last Hungry Limo Galaxy once I get the remaining Mail Toad letters. That was pretty slow. So Hightail Falls Comet is essentially a repeat of Hightail Falls 1, but with a timer, and you get way too much time to complete this mission. Unlike Sky Station Comet, there's no clocks or anything I need to collect. There are some holes in the ground and meteors falling, and for the most part, these aren't an issue. And the ending of this star is also going to be slightly different than before, because I don't need to get the Comet Medal this time, since this is the Comet. So I'm going to be able to do a slightly faster strat for the ending. And I have have to make sure I avoid those Smeeches, because if they touch you, they latch onto Yoshi's tongue and make it impossible to eat anything else until you shake them off. So again, the general strategy for this level is just going to be going around and maximizing the amount of time I have the dash pepper for. Making sure I don't bonk on anything either. Alright, here comes the difference between this star and High Titan Falls 1. So instead of doing that cool infinite flutter and skipping the launch star, I'm actually going to take the launch star this time. And there's a weird mechanic in this game called tilt, where depending on how far back Mario or Luigi or Yoshi is leaning on a planet due to its gravity, will affect the height of their jump. So because that wall causes you to lean super far back, you get an insane amount of height from that jump, but that allows you to jump all the way up here. And that is faster if you're not getting the Comet Medal. Okay, but now it is time for one of the dumbest stars in the entire run. I am not joking. So, Boulderable comment, this star is basically all RNG. There's not too many RNG elements in this run, thankfully, but this is one of the few times where it's really bad. Because you have to kill 30 crappers on the planet where Rolodilla was with Rock Mario, and their movement is essentially random. And you have a time limit, and if the time limit runs out, you die, and you have to redo the entire mission, so that's fun. One important bit of tech to note for this star is that the game never tells you about. You can actually cancel a roll early by jumping and pressing Z. And that makes this star so much more manageable. And I'm going to be using that a lot. So, at the start here, I'm going to be kind of hoping that these crabbers group up, and then once I get to about the 20s is when I'll start kind of focusing on individual ones. So at this point, I just have to hope on getting combos here. And the blue crabbers are really terrible because their movement is extremely erratic. More so than the orange crabbers. That was actually kind of nice. I was able to use Star Bits there to stun that crabber. Alright, so now I can focus on the individual ones because I don't have that many left. Get this one, and then get that one, and that should be it. And it should be right where the star spawns. Yep. That was actually a really good Boulderable comment. So I have actually finished that star with 1 second remaining on the timer. And there was one time where I got the last crabber when the timer was at 1 and the game didn't count it. So that star can be incredibly stressful. Unfortunately, that went really well. And the last star in this little backtracking session before I go back to World 4 is going to be Fiery Flotilla's Comet, after we get the second of the two Rosalina Starbit letters. And for this next star, we get to visit our good friend Gobblegut again, who we saw a little over an hour ago. So if you don't remember this fight, this is just a time challenge against the Gobblegut fight, and not the entire stage, thankfully. I'm going to be going for exactly what I went for in Fiery Flotilla 1, which is basically trying to attack Gobblegut while he's in the air, as opposed to having to wait for the belly eagle just to pass by when he digs through the ground. And this is the second opportunity. Hopefully this fight goes exactly like it did before, but this is the second opportunity for the game to show you just how screwed up Gobblegut can get. Again, one mistake in this fight can lead to like 20 seconds lost, because it's really hard to back things up. The first phase is usually the easier of the two for me. The second phase is where it gets really tricky because your movement has to be really precise. This should be good. Alright, a little bit awkward there, but it still worked out. Like I said, that boss is way, way harder than I just made it look. It takes a lot of time to get down. But it looks really stylish if pulled off properly. And that will actually be the end of stars I need to get from Worlds 1 and 2. So again, normally those last 5 stars that I just did would have been done after I completed World 4, but before going to World 5. But due to this reroute, I'm actually going to get them now, and that's so I can have more stars by the end of World 4. And you'll see why in a little bit, after I get the next couple comets. So now I'm going to go back to World 4, and because I finally got Puzzle Planks Comet, the 2 purple coin comets here have spawned, so I'm going to go ahead and get them now. Starting with Sweet Mysteries Comet, this star is deceptively difficult. Because I don't have to Infinite Flutter in this level, because there's no Infinite Flutter tech required, but Yoshi walks really, really fast. So optimally, I want to stay on the ground as much as possible, but this makes getting the purple coins without slowing down and without missing any very difficult. So I'm probably not going to speak much here because I have to focus a lot here. And whenever I do a jump with Yoshi, I'm going to double tap A so that he does a short little flutter, because again, I want to keep him out of the air as long as possible. There's a lot of really tight movement in this star. If I play really, really fast here, which is unlikely, but I can potentially make a cycle with this block up ahead. Okay, I'm not making it now because I missed that purple coin. Alright. That wasn't horrible. I could have saved a couple extra seconds if I made the cycle I was alluding to, but still not too bad. But now we have a star that's even more frustrating and even easier to lose a colossal amount of time on, because mistakes on this next star, it's very easy for them to snowball. So I'm going to do Flipsville's Comet next, which is yet another purple coin comet. This time it's getting 100 coins in the 2D section where the silver stars were. This star is very cycle-based, and the route I'm doing is extremely tight. And you also have to rely on the fact that when you drill with the spin drill, your hitbox becomes abnormally large, and which will allow me to collect huge clusters of purple coins without having to go out of my way for them. So the first half of the star is going to be insanely tight. So hopefully this goes well. Alright, here's an example of the spin drill's big hitbox. Alright, now I'm past all the really difficult parts. From here on out, it shouldn't be too bad. Gotta make sure I kill this Fuzzy here. Again, missing purple coins in a room is really bad, and missing cycles, it's super easy to get too far ahead of yourself, and then you just make a really big mistake and then you feel really bad. That last part can go a little bit quicker than that, but other than that, that was a perfect Flipsville Comet. And there's just one more comment done before we can finally get on to some new content. And that's going to be Chompworks Comet. So Chompworks Comet is the last planet of Chompworks 1, but with Cosmic Lens. It's still a big auto-scroller. But that actually means you can get a frame-perfect IL time here of 51.20 seconds, which a bunch of people have as a tied world record. It's not really RTA feasible, but still nice to point out. And yeah, for the most part, this star is just dodging the Cosmic Clones and trying to get the Chomp there. If your Chomp breaks here, that's really bad, and it's really hard to back it up, so let's not have that happen. One tiny thing I can do to speed this up is by breaking that Chomp at roughly the same time that Cosmic Clones spawn, the next Chomp spawns a little bit sooner, but other than that, there's nothing I can really do to speed this up, other than not die. So I'll go ahead and talk about the main reason why I did that World 2 backtracking section during World 4. So after this star, before I go to Starshine Beach, I'm actually going to unlock the pathway that unlocks Gravity Gauntlet, because I have enough stars for that, since I did that backtracking section. And you might be wondering why I'm doing it, and that's actually because it'll both unlock the path to Gravity Gauntlet, the boss level, and also the path coming from Starshine Beach. And so normally what you would do is you would just go through World 4 normally, but then once you complete Starshine Beach, a path unlock cutscene would occur, because that path wouldn't have been unlocked yet, but by unlocking that path ahead of time, I effectively skip that cutscene, which can save about 5 seconds. Again, it's kind of hard to explain, but you'll see what I mean here really quickly. So before I go to Starshine Beach, I'm going to unlock this path, and you'll notice it draws both the path to Gravity Gauntlet and the path from Starshine Beach. Alright, now we can go to Starshine Beach, which is one of the few open-world galaxies in this game. And this first mission with the Silver Stars are kind of spread all about, and you get Yoshi for the entire thing, which means the route here is pretty entertaining to watch. And also, Yoshi doesn't die when he touches water in this game. This whole galaxy is basically a tribute to SMS, or Super Mario Sunshine. There's another frame perfect ground pound. So once I land on this planet here, I'm gonna bounce on this crabber here to stun it, and I'm gonna get on Yoshi, and then eat this crabber and infinite flutter up to this glass. And I'm gonna use this crabber to break this glass. And then I'm going to infinite flutter from here over to the tower, and this infinite flutter is kind of tricky because the perspective isn't too great, but by knowing what the perspective can be like, you can easily get a good lineup, so that's what I did there. Infinite flutter over here, you get this Dash Pepper, and Yoshi can actually run on deep water with the Dash Pepper. If he doesn't run the wrong direction. And this ending here can look really stylish if I get this. Nice. So that was essentially like what you saw at the end of Hytale Falls 1, where by dismounting off of Dash Pepper Yoshi while going up a slope, you can gain a lot of height. So I just used that to propel myself into the last Silver Star. And this is one of the few common medals that's slightly out of the way. You have to dedicate about 10 seconds to that common medal, but it will net me one of the fastest comet stars in the run. So it's definitely worth going out of my way to get it. Let's see if I can do a Pianta bounce here. Nice. That was a pretty decent Starshine Beach one. There's a lot that can go wrong in that level, so to have it go that well is pretty satisfying. And there's one more star left before we can finally finish off World 4. We've been here for a really long time by now. And that's Starshine Beach 2. And this level is normally a very long and roundabout path to get some clouds to the central tower in order to climb up it and get to the star. But luckily we have Chucksters in this level, our good friends from Pianta 5. So I can use a Chuckster throw to get onto the highest cloud of the tower. That alone isn't enough to get on top of the tower, because like you saw in Honey Bloom 1, you're not supposed to stand on clouds if you don't have Cloud Mario. But you can still do that jump off the cloud before it disappears to make it onto the tower. And so that's what I'm going to use. So I just kind of have to do a bunch of long jumps to get over there. I'm also going to turn the camera on my way there to manipulate the cycle so that they're a bit more favorable. And and I should be able to just go right into the Chuckster and make it onto the cloud. And then I have to spin as Mario starts falling backwards, and then I can just jump onto the cloud and make it onto the tower. And that skips pretty much the entire level. So that probably saves close to a minute as well. And the jump off the cloud is actually a lot more lenient than it may seem. Okay, so this next level, Bowser's Gravity Gauntlet, is going to require a lot of explanation. So there's actually 2 different gravity exploits you can do in this level to skip huge chunks of it, and the one I'm going to go for in this level is called Behind the Castle, which you can kind of understand why it's called that. Basically, you go behind the 2D castle and lava boost into the gravity zone of the final 2D section. This skip is a lot harder than it looks, and there are a number of factors that go into it that are not visibly obvious to the viewer. First of all, is actually something that was discovered semi-recently. So, a slope's slipperiness actually depends on its distance from the camera. So there's a little pillar that's normally sloped, but if I get onto it while it's far away enough from the camera, then Mario can walk on it as if it were a regular surface. And that's the whole point of this skip being possible. So I'm going to grab this life mushroom here. I'm doing Behind the Castle on this star instead of the other skip, because I need to go a little bit past here to get the Comet Medal. Alright, so now here we go. So I'm going to try to get onto this pillar, and because of the slope's deactivation, I can walk around it like this. And here goes nothing. Okay, got it. That saves a good, like, 25 to 30 seconds. So, the reason why that skip is so finicky is because you actually have to be a specific distance away from the castle in order for it to work, otherwise you'll just die, and dying to that skip loses a lot of time. So, it's really nice that that went well. And now the rest of this level is just going to play out similarly to the previous Bowser level. You can actually hit 2 of these blocks at once with a really precise shot, but there's no consistent setup for it, so if runners ever get it, it's just a fluke. So this Bowser fight is a lot. It's a bit of an upgrade from the previous one, but not by much. It is a lot harder though, because first of all, shockwaves will now come off of Bowser's punches and the meteors he drops, which means you have a lot more to dodge. And in this fight, specifically, Bowser will only drop 2 meteors instead of the usual 3, and Bowser can actually punch out both meteors at once. Which is really bad and costs you a cycle, which again is about 20 seconds. So first I have to dodge his punches, which is insanely difficult. Right. So for this first hit, I'm going to be going for a punch cancel. So I'm actually going to wait for Bowser to start a punch attack before I ground pound the meteor into him. And this will make Bowser think he's already punched. So he should punch here, but instead he just spawns the meteors right away, and that nets a few seconds of time save. And I don't have to do that for any other hits. Thankfully. Okay, so one thing I should probably bring up here is that this is something you might not see too often, but Bowser's shell can actually deflect the meteors. It's rare that it happens in this fight or Lava Lair, but it can happen in Galaxy Generator's fight because it seems like his shell's hitbox grows with every individual fight. So you can have a situation where an aim that looks like it would work on this fight or Lava Lair would not work on Galaxy Generator. Alright. But we didn't have to worry about that here, so that was a pretty good fight. And so, now we're finally done with the World 4 segment, so we're kinda sorta 2/3 through the run. So now would probably... I've been talking pretty much for the past 2 hours, so if there's any donations that need to be read or any plugs that need to be made, now would probably be a good time. If the host is present. Which it doesn't seem like they are, okay. Okay, so we got a little over an hour left in this run. And World 5, the World 5 segment is actually going to be fairly short, as I'm only going to be getting, what, 10 stars here. So I'll be in and out in less than, like, 25 minutes, most likely. Again, this World segment used to be longer because we used to do that World 2 and 1 backtracking section before going to World 5. Which would add in an additional, like, 12 minutes. But with this out, we can just go straight into the meat of World 5. So this first star I'm going to do, Space Storm 1, you actually have to do this star in order to make progress in the game. There's just no other way around it. There's no alternate star you can do or anything. Fortunately, this is a pretty fast level. And it gives access to another really, really fast star. So the main difficulty with this level is this cylinder planet you see with all the elevators moving on it, because that planet is cycle-based. And missing cycles is super easy and costs about like 5 seconds per cycle. We also have the introduction to pull stars here. Uh-oh, that's not good. I missed the camera cancel there. Right, this long jump there saves about 5 seconds in platform cycles there. That long jump took me about an hour to get down when I was learning it. Just to give you an idea of how hard it is. But I figured it out by now. So that planet ended up going really well, even though I missed the camera cancel at the start. I was still able to make the good cycle. Now I just have to lure this bomb over here to break this glass. And instead of walking all the way around to the launch star, I can just long jump straight to it. Now I have a section with a bunch of pull stars, so... In order to do pull stars optimally, you have to release yourself from them before you reach their center so that Mario maintains momentum. And that's really hard to do in this section because there's a lot of obstacles in the way, and also it's pointer-based. Alright. Luckily when you get shocked in this game, you get suspended in midair for a little bit, so that gives me time to grab onto another pull star and make it into the star. So that was a pretty decent Space Storm 1 all in all. That last section probably could have been a little bit faster, but still worked out. Alright, and that's the Starbit text box I've been trying to avoid this entire run. I somehow still had 2 Starbits in my inventory, so I lost a second there. And now we're going to do Space Storm 2, which actually pays homage to a buoy-based galaxy from Galaxy 1, and even has the buoy-based music. Unfortunately, you're not going to hear too much of it, because this is actually the second fastest star in the run. If done well, which is really tricky. So this level is normally all about hitting those blue switches to slow down time, because as you can see, all the moving elements in this level are really fast. I'm going to try not to hit any of those. So instead of going to the right and going through all the obstacles and stuff, I'm just going to jump onto this wall to the left and completely skip all of it. And then jump onto the swamp. Use its upwards momentum to get up here. And then do a triple jump here to skip some top men fighting and get the star. That was pretty good. Like I said, you don't get to hear much of that song in speedruns. So that's the second fastest star in the run. It takes under 30 seconds if done well. Which it was. And now we can move on into the bulk of World 5. There's not too many stars I need to get here, because there's 2 galaxies I'm just flat out not going to go to, and it's Slipsand and Fleet Glide. But we will be getting most of the stars from the other galaxies to meet the total. So here's SuperViperT's secret, and if you missed your opportunity to guess the score I was going to get for Freezy Flake secret, this is your opportunity to do that again. So remember, guess in multiples of 10, but this time the minimum threshold is 600 points. So 600 to 900 multiples of 10. If no one gets it exactly right, whoever is closest wins. So I'm going to head over here. I'm going to use these clouds here to skip this giant C here. And make it all the way over to the pipe. Alright. So this minigame is pretty much the exact same as the previous one. It's just, you need to get a slightly higher score. You can even get the same patterns and they can be rotated in the same ways. Alright, I got a different rotation this time, but like I said, once I know what rotation I'm on, it's fixed for the remainder of the game, so that's pretty convenient. Alright, so I got the high score, but we can take it a bit further, and I should be... Oh, I could have gone for like 860. 810 is still pretty decent. So again, if no one gets it exactly right, then whoever's closest wins. That's not the last time we'll see the chimp, by the way, but it's the last time where there's really an opportunity to do a guessing minigame, because the last chimp challenge is there's not a whole lot of options for you. So next is going to be SuperViperT 1, and this is a pretty long, convoluted level, but there's a lot of really cool strats here. This is actually one of my favorite levels in the run. So there's a gravity exploit right off the gate here, where I'm going to skip from the beginning of this first planet to the end of the second planet using clouds because they're right next to each other. And I'm going to use this platform to help me with that. I have to make these clouds at very specific times and get good enough distance from these long jumps. And this should work. Now I have to detour a little bit in front of the launch star in order to get the Comet Medal. I'm actually going to ditch Cloud Mario on purpose. Because I want to lose the floaty effect to make this section a little bit easier. So this ice section, I'm going to turn the camera a little bit just to manipulate the timing of the icicles up ahead. And then I'm actually going to skip having to kill these guys. That was not what I meant to do. So now I have to find a way to back this up somehow. Alright. I had to wait another cycle there. You can skip killing those guys by just long jumping past them like that, but I messed it up the first time, so I had to wait. That was actually really close to dying. Now I have to fight Prince Picante, which is, I'm actually going to be doing a slightly slower strat for this boss, but it's totally safe. So I'm going to intentionally miss that first coconut, and then hit the second one late. Because what this does is he's going to set him up so that he's never on that side of the battlefield during the second or third hits. Because then he will do this upwards firing attack that you can actually use for a faster strat, but it's very, very RNG dependent. But this strat barely loses any time and is totally consistent. There we go. So yeah, that failure earlier was just because I flubbered on some movement. But we live in. So World 5 also got a slight reroute. Again, it's just the order that I'm going to be doing things is slightly modified than before. So we used to do the 2 stars from Upside Dizzy and then the 2 stars from Boom Moon, but I'm actually going to be splitting Boom Moon up. Also, this is the last Rosalina Starbit letter. So after this, I'll have enough Starbits for Flash Black in World 6. So again, in order to save time from having overlapping text boxes and cutscenes, it's actually better to do Boom Moon 1 now. So Boom Moon is kind of the other spoopy level of this game. It's mostly just kind of these 2 stars are mostly revolved just around a bunch of like snake block auto-scrollers. But Boom Moon 1 actually has a really cool gravity exploit I can use to skip part of the snake blocks. And you'll get to see that in effect here. And also this first planet, it's really only faster to long jump at the beginning and the end of it. You can also do some of these more small hops to save some time. Okay, so right here, you can't normally do a camera cancel there because the game doesn't normally allow you to enter first-person mode, but you can actually do a camera cancel if you press up on the D-pad on the first frame you land. So the skip's going to be coming up here. So there's a wall up ahead that will actually shift the direction of gravity to be sideways. So I'm going to get that wall to rise up and then backtrack to this set of snake blocks and wait for the gravity field to shift, then jump onto this side of the snake blocks. And then I can long jump off, spin, and enter the launch star like that. And that saves a good chunk of time over actually taking the snake blocks. And then we have this last section with some silver stars. There's a button here that allows this mansion to sort of pop up. And I'm going to try to get this all in one cycle. Pretty good Boom Moon 1. So before I do Boom Moon Secret, I'm going to go ahead and take care of Upside Dizzy. Upside Dizzy is sort of the sequel level to Right Side Down, where it sort of plays with the idea of switching gravity zones, except this level is even more confusing than the previous run. And it's also way harder to do fast. But first we have a mail-toad letter for a star that's thankfully not in the route, because Space Storm letter is a bad level. So the thing with Upside Dizzy 1, which is the first star I'm going to do here, is that it is heavily cycle-based. And usually missing cycles causes you to not only causes a snowball of mistakes, but especially in certain parts of the stage, it can lead to having to improvise, and you almost always lose in upwards of like 10 seconds. So you basically need this level to go perfectly, or as planned. And right from this first backflip, it's hard. Alright. So by long jumping into this red gravity zone here, I can get a huge ton of height here. So I can get up here a little bit quicker. I'm gonna go for a Goomba bounce to skip into this pipe. Got it. And then here is the hallway. This is probably the most awkward hallway in the existence of gaming. If you do not know what you're doing here, you are going to stumble through this entire thing and lose like a year. But this is going really well so far. Alright, that was basically perfect. Again, that star is super hard to get down. You basically need to just find consistent movement that works for you and roll with it. And just hope that nothing goes wrong, especially in the hallway. Like, if one thing goes wrong in the hallway, it throws your entire pattern off, and you just have to improvise. So I'm going to re-enter and do the Secret Star, which, just like Right Side Down, is going to be another box-burning minigame. There's a pretty finicky Goomba bounce to get into this pipe early, and there's a number of factors that can cause this to not work, such as Mario randomly flipping direction for no reason. So let's see how this goes. After we ditch Luigi again. It should be good. Alright, that was pretty good. This this minigame, I would argue, is easier to do fast than the one in right side down. It's probably harder to do casually, though, because you have a stricter time limit. But you don't have to throw the fireballs at many of awkward angles. One thing to point out about these minigames, though, is that the fireballs don't actually come from Mario's center. They come from his right hand. So you want to actually be a little bit to the left of where you want the fireballs to go. Otherwise, you're going to miss. Okay, so that was an unfortunate miss there. Nice backup. You'll optimally end with a 9 on the timer, so with those mistakes, a 7 isn't too bad. Okay. And this will be the last time Lava brings us down to the engine room, which is pretty nice. So I'm actually going to head back to Boom Moon and get the secret star. This star is a bit less interesting than Boom Moon 1, because that skip I did in Boom Moon 1 actually can't be used here, because I need to ride the snake blocks the entire way around. So for the most part, this level is just going to be riding on the snake blocks until I get to the end. That's another instance where I have to make sure I select Boom Moon 1 instead of auto-selecting Boom Moon 2. Otherwise, it would lose a lot of time. Fortunately, you can skip some portions of these snake blocks by long jumping past them, but yeah, for the most part, this is just kind of just auto-scrollers. So I'm actually going to be taking this snake block until I get past the launch star, because there's a secret star located past it. And there's a comet medal on the way here, so might as well grab it. And instead of riding the snake block all the way over to the star like you're supposed to, you can just kind of long jump straight to it. I do not know how I missed that. I think it was because I was too low. That's a very unfortunate time loss, because now I have to redo this entire snake block section. That's actually really stupid. I think my positioning was just slightly off, so I'll take the fall for that one. That jump's actually normally really easy, so... I would actually recommend doing that jump casually, because taking that snake block the intended way is just stupid. Yeah, that's a really big time loss. That's like over 45 seconds, I'm pretty sure. Alright, let's try that again. There we go. That should work. I just need to be a little bit higher. So, very unfortunate mistake there. So now there's just one star left before we can finish off World 5, and that's going to be SuperViperT302's Comet. This star is very simplistic. So SuperViperT302 Comet is the third of 4th Romp Comets in the game. Again, you just have to kill a certain number of enemies within a time limit. And you get the Rainbow Star again, but it's also on the arena where Prince Picante was. So therein lies the question of, like, would you rather skate or run? And it's actually better to run, because your top speed seems to be a little bit faster, and also you can turn a lot tighter, which makes killing the Octoombas a lot easier. So I'm going to try to do this all on one Rainbow Star here. actually going to skate into the Rainbow Star to build up momentum, and then I'm going to jump out of the skate and just run. Yeah, really easy level. But now we're coming up on one of the worst levels in the run, in my opinion, and that is Bowser Jr.'s Boom Bunker. So the nice thing about Galaxy 2 Any% is that you don't have to do any of the stupid motion control-based levels like the Fluzzard or ball rolling levels, but Bowser Jr.'s Boom Bunker is required in this category, and it requires cannon shots. It's the only level in the game with cannons, and cannon shots in this game are pointer-based. And the problem with this level is that the 2 cannon shots I need to make here are extremely precise, and missing either of them can result in really costly deaths. Which makes this a really stressful level 2 hours and 20 minutes into the run, especially if you're nervous, because if your hand is shaky, then that can cause trouble. That can cause you to have trouble aiming, or when you go to press the A button, your hand twitches at the last second and changes where you're aiming, which causes you to miss your target and then you die. This first cannon shot is definitely the harder of the two, and it also doesn't help that it's the more costly one to miss. This is a really, really precise window I have to aim here. So I'm going to try aiming at this Boomerang Bro's face. That might be too high. Alright, we're good. That just insta-KOs it, and I have a quick setup to get that Boomerang Bro. And this second cannon shot is a bit more generous, but it's still easy to miss, and the part after it is really difficult. So you're supposed to actually use Cloud Mario to get to the end of this section, but you can just barely make it without it by doing this cool long jump. That doesn't really save that much time, but it's not that hard of a jump once you figure it out. And now we're off to Boomsday. And this boss is notorious because either it goes incredibly well for you, or it goes incredibly well for Bowser Jr. The first 2 hits aren't too bad, it's really the 3rd hit where that can be an issue. So this is just getting to the top of Boomsday and then ground pounding the cockpit. And you have to use the clouds to do it. And on this, for this hit, I have to wait for the electricity around him to stop flowing, because he's invincible until then. And now it's time for the 3rd hit, where I have to be insanely quick to get to Bowser Jr. before he gets too close to me. Otherwise, I'll lose a good chunk of time. I slightly messed up there, but I was able to save it. Oh, and if you're wondering why Bowser Jr. isn't in 3D World or Odyssey, this is why, because he canonically dies there. So F's in the chat for Bowser Jr. And that's it for World 5. So now at this point, we only have World 6 left, and unfortunately, it is the 2nd longest world segment in this run. It used to be the longest. And World 6 is essentially where runs in this category go to die, because it is super easy to make a huge mistake here, and just have your run die. It also doesn't help that at this point in the run, you're usually really nervous. Yeah, we're sort of approaching the home stretch here. There's a little under 40 minutes, give or take, left in this run. Assuming all goes well, which hopefully it does. So the first galaxy I'm going to visit is Melty Monster, and I'm actually going to be able to get all 3 stars from here in a single visit. Which, unlike most galaxies in this run. Melting Monster 1 is a pretty interesting level because it's another one of those levels where there isn't really anything major in it. It's just a lot of movement and tiny optimizations. One thing to point out, though, is that in the second section of the level, there are tornadoes that are on global cycles as soon as you enter the level. So I have to have pretty decent movement in the pole star section in order to make the optimal tornado cycle. That was pretty good. And this next section is just a bunch of lava boosting and a bunch of mini platform skips. So basically just kind of take a direct line there. Like right here, I'm gonna long jump into this lava mushroom, and this light shroom, and then just lava boost to skip past all these poles. And I should be on pace to make the tornado cycle. That long jump is really finicky because the angle you have to hold isn't a notch angle. And I actually made the tornado cycle so I could skip that second tornado as well as this fourth one. But now we're getting to the really annoying part of this level. So every single one of these tiny planets has its own gravity field, which makes platforming very tricky and annoying. But fortunately, we can do this cool little long jump to skip the first few planets. Go out of my way here to get the common medal. I'm going to wait for this mag ball to pass by before backflipping over to this planet to break the crystal. And for some reason, hitting this crystal on the left side is easier than hitting it on the right. Alright, I might get burned here. Alright. Don't know why Mario just stopped there, but that was still a pretty good Melty Monster 1. That's another level where a lot can go wrong. So the order I'm going to be doing these stars in actually does matter. So I want to do Melty Monster 1 first because the cycles are better that way. But now I'm actually going to do Melty Monster 2 second, and then Melty Monster Secret third. Because when I re-enter for the third time, only 2 stars will show up on the star select menu instead of 3. Which saves like half a second or so. But it's an easy half second to save. So the other 2 stars in Melty Monster revolve around Rock Mario to some degree. Actually to a very high degree. And Melty Monster 2 is a really infamous place where runs die. This is also a really good place to farm star bits if you don't use the SD card strap like I was talking about earlier to refill Bank Toad. Because you can easily get up to 999 star bits here in just a few minutes. Yeah, this level is pretty straightforward for the most part, except for the very end, where there is a skip I might attempt, called Zigzag Skip. It saves only about 3 seconds if you make it, but it loses 45 if you miss it. Basically, there's this little Z section at the very end where you're supposed to hit fences to go back and forth, but you can actually ride across the tiny gaps in the middle and make it that way. It's extremely precise. So I'm going to kind of take a look at what my lineup is looking like leading up until then and eyeball it from there. So it's coming up here. And I'm also going to be doing spins after every jump I do because that just saves a little bit of time. Alright, I got the skip. Nice. And I was able to get right into the star. It is super easy to die to that. So I'm really happy that I didn't. But if you thought that looked crazy, this next star is going to look even crazier. So I'm going to do the bowling minigame next. And if you remember that tech I did in Boulder Bowl 1, where I did a spin jump onto a ramp to cancel its effects, I'm going to be abusing that heavily in this next star in order to actually jump at the edges of ramps instead of taking them. Normally when you take a ramp to the next platform in this star, you stop when you reach the next platform, but by jumping at the edge of the ramp instead of normally taking it, you can continue rolling. And I'm going to be doing this on 3 separate ramps. And this is really precise, so I'm going to need to focus here. And I also only have a few pins of leeway here, so I have to be careful about that too. And these are essentially blind jumps. So here we go. Alright, that's one down. Alright, that went really well. I got all three of them without dying. You can do way more than that, but those are just the three I opt to do, because I would consider them the safest ones, and they're the ones I'm the best at. So that saves, doing those ramp jumps saves a good 2.5 seconds per ramp. So by doing it that way, I can save up to about 7 seconds over just doing it the normal way. You can save more time than that if you do more ramp skips. That was a really good Milky Monster, though. And believe it or not, World 6 also got rerouted in this category recently. So almost the entire latter half of this route is different than it used to be, and it's also just doing stuff in a different order. So instead of taking the top route first like we used to, I'm actually going to unlock this Hungry Luma now and take the bottom path first, and this is again to overlap cutscenes in a way that saves time with the dialogue. So this is the last Hungry Luma I have to feed. So you actually have to go down one of the two paths in order to get to Galaxy Generator, and it's much more preferred to go down this path because Battle Belt is not a fun galaxy, and Flash Black has a couple of really fast stars. So Flash Black has an interesting gimmick where the lights switch on and off in a cycle. So you only get a brief glimpse of the level every few seconds, but once you've played this level enough times like I have, you pretty much have the layout memorized. And there's a pretty obvious way to get through here. And this level doesn't have a whole lot going for it. Because this first section is just a climb using a Flint Ryoshi. The big noteworthy part is coming up here. There's a really cool strat I can use to get the combo medal here that hopefully I can pull off. Okay, lucky I didn't hit the Goomba there. So I'm going to bounce off this Jacko Goomba, use backwards momentum to get the combo medal, get back on Yoshi, bounce off it again, dismount, and enter the launcher like that. Really cool looking strat. And this last section I just have to collect some silver stars. Just kind of long jumping around. This yellow platform is on a different cycle every single time I get here, I swear, and I have no idea how to manipulate it. Here I actually have to wait though. And you might get to see a literal blind jump here. Yeah. Okay, and this is the part of the run where you can kind of get your Resonant Sleepers out. It's kind of unfortunate that this reroute is faster because now this star is a lot earlier. Slimy Spring used to be this calm before the storm star, but there's a lot more run left after it than there used to be. And really the only reason this star makes the cut is because it's better than doing Battle Belt. Yeah, this star is basically just 2 minutes of going underwater with the shell. There's a couple of noteworthy things to talk about, but other than that, I literally do not have anything to say about it for like the first half. So if chat has any questions, there's a bit of a delay, so it might take me some time to get to them. I'll probably answer them. I know I haven't read chat too much this run, but now is a really good time. If you've never seen a run of this game and want to know anything about it, you can ask away. Because all that's really important here is a slip boost. This is the final slope boost of the run. Oh. I messed up there, but that's fine. It doesn't lose too much time. And now we just kind of do this. This next section, I'm going to attempt to do coinless strats here. So there are some coins in these speed rings you can go through. I'm going to try to hit the outer edges of this ring so I don't collect the coins. But the coins have pretty large hitboxes, so this is a pretty tight window you have here. Also, if you hit one of these walls head-on with the shell at a high speed, you lose the shell, which is a big risk factor. Oh, we made it. So this should be a coinless slimy spring, which will save a second in text boxes. And this is another pretty cool shell jump here. You have a pretty good lineup for that. If you miss that, though, there is a backup shell literally right next to you, so you don't lose too much time, but that looks really cool. And I'm actually going to attempt a squeeze backflip here. I don't know if I'm close enough, but we'll see. Nice, I made it. So, because I was close enough to Captain Toad, I was actually slightly underneath Captain Toad's hitbox. So by doing that backflip, the hitbox actually kind of... the Captain Toad's hitbox shortened the height of my backflip and sort of boosted me into the star like that. That's a pretty recent development. Yeah, you can wake up now. What do you think the next major time save? It's hard to say. There's a lot of stuff that hasn't been implemented yet, but it's mostly just really minor stuff. Alright, so now I'm actually going to take the top path and clear out this part. So we're going to start with Clockwork Ruin Secret, which is another really, really stressful level. I have to collect 30 coins in order to defeat a Hungry Luma here. I need to get 1 star from here in order to have access to the galaxy after this one. And the secret star happens to work out nicely as long as you don't die. So getting the 30 coins here is not terribly difficult. It's just if you die in this start, then the cycles are not favorable. Okay, please make this. Okay. Okay, that was a really scary beginning. Alright, I'm gonna go for a cool little strat here where I'm gonna do a triple jump. Okay. I was gonna go for a strat where I do a momentum conserving triple jump. In order to... Okay, I am very shocked that I didn't just die there. That was really, really lucky. We're just gonna pretend nothing happened there. Alright, so this is a... So now I'm kind of doing a standard route here. Okay, I'm gonna get 10 coins from this item box, which makes this star a lot more manageable. And then I just have to get 1 coin from here. Okay, that was a bit of a jump scare, but we didn't die, so that's good. So now the star is basically done because you can skip pretty much this entire last planet by doing a simple triple jump wall kick. This is yet another skip that you could probably do in casual play without too much difficulty. Just that. So yeah, pretty stressful level, but we live in. And now we have access to a galaxy that I'm sure many of you will recognize. which is kind of the main reason why I got that star to begin with. And again, the whole reroute is so that a bunch of world map cutscenes overlap like that in order to save small amounts of time. So this next galaxy will be familiar to the Super Mario 64 fans in the chat, because it is essentially a remake of Womp's Fortress. This first star is going to be a remake of Chip Off Womp's Block from that game. And the common medal is actually where the Shoot Into the Wild Blue star was. And this is actually the last common medal I'm going to be collecting in the run. And I should have 32 after this one, which should mean I haven't missed any. So unfortunately, the movement here isn't nearly as flashy as it is in SM64, but it's still pretty entertaining. So I'm just going to kind of make my way over here. This is a little bit of a detour because I need to get the common medal. I can do a cool little triple jump ledge hop to get up there. And do some sick platforming to make it up here. And you can actually skip killing this Womp, but it's stupid and not marathon safe. You can have that Womp clip you into the floor in a weird way, but if you mess it up, you get crushed and die. So I just didn't bother with it. It barely saves any time anyways. So now here's the Big Daddy Womp King. Unfortunately, you cannot glitch through him like you can in SM64. You have to fight this guy more or less as intended. This fight is actually somewhat tricky because you have to deal with these little wimp guys. They can sometimes get in your way. For the most part, though, this fight's pretty simple. Just gotta be careful here. I had to bait that little wimp guy so that he didn't hit me there, otherwise I probably would have lost a little bit of time. And this jump to the star is extremely awkward because of the camera. It's really hard to tell what direction to hold. So not only is this just a cool level to show off, but doing that star gives me access to 2 other really fast stars, which is kind of, and 32 common medals, so I'm good. And Gravity Gauntlet's comet, which is this comet, is the one I've been collecting 32 comet medals for. And this is going to be the last time Lubba brings me down to the bottom of the starship or bothers me at all. He's going to want to bother me one more time in this run, but that's not going to happen. So, Throwback 2 is a Silver Star mission, and again, one of the things to keep in mind about routing the Galaxy games is that certain stars, even if they are slow, they could give access to stars that are fast, and that happens to be the case with this one. So this level, the Silver Stars are just kind of in random locations that don't really correlate to SM64 locations, but they are spread about the level, and you do get Cloud Mario, so it's a really nice level to show off movement. So I have to be careful when getting this Silver Star here, because if I make this cloud too early, then I won't get the Silver Star, and I have to wait for a cloud to expire so that I can drop down and get it. And here I'm going to veer off to the right a little bit with this long jump, because again, if you're Cloud Mario and you're above a pit and you long jump from the center of a cloud above a pit, then you gain a lot more horizontal speed. Do a bit more cloud boosting here. And we just have one final set of jumps here. Pretty good. So this will be the last normal star I'll be collecting in this run. The last 6 stars before Bowser's Galaxy Generator are all going to be comets. I'm going to be collecting 2 from World 4, 2 from World 3, and then 2 from World 6, and that'll get me up to 70 stars. So we're going to begin our final backtracking session of the run here. So the first comment I'm going to get is definitely one of the hardest stars in the run, and definitely a late game run ender. Gravity Gauntlet comment. So if you remember their first star in Bowser's Gravity Gauntlet, I did that behind the castle skip. I'm actually going to be able to do the faster skip here because I don't need the comet medal. So the premise of this skip is that when you hit a lava wall, as opposed to hitting a lava floor, and then you hit the lava again, you get a huge boost in horizontal momentum. And by doing really specifically timed direction switches, you can enter the gravity zone of the same area that I skipped to when doing behind the castle. I'm going to be going for the slightly faster but also slightly harder version of this strat, and it's super easy to die here if you make a tiny error. So we'll see how this goes. But the skip looks really cool if I can get it. So this thin little patch there is a lava wall. Okay, so what happened there was I spent slightly too long in the air. That looks like I should have landed, but if you spend too long in the air in the lava boost state, you actually die like that, even if you're above ground. And that actually happened because there's a right to left switch that I did slightly too early. But I'll try it again. That was also too early. Yeah. It's okay, third time's the charm, as they always say. It's, again, the direction switches here are super finicky, and when you only have when you have very little time to react, and there's no good visual cue. So... understandable. Might be better. Okay, that was actually too late that time. So this is not going well. It's really just kind of a hit or miss with this skip. But I'll keep trying it. I have plenty of lives. Okay, that time it was also too early. Man, I'm just... The right to left switch is easily the hardest part of this. I'll give it one more shot, and then I'll try the other skip. And if that doesn't work, I'll just do behind the castle. Because I'm losing a lot of time to this. Okay, that was seriously late. Okay, I'll try the other skip now. I'll try the older variant of it. And if that doesn't work, I'll just do behind the castle. This older variant is much more finicky, and I haven't tried it in a while. Actually, you know what? I should be getting this. That's probably good. What? Man. I don't remember this being this difficult, but... okay, fine, I'll ditch it. That's a really big time loss, and again, if this were to happen on PB pace, my run would just be dead. Which is really unfortunate. I don't actually know why I keep messing it up, but... we'll try this now. So this is the old variant of the skip. Of course I hit that first try. And I'm gonna run out of time. Okay, I had to grab that clock there, otherwise I would have ran out of time and died. And that would have been a really embarrassing thing to do. At least you get to hear more of this song. So that was a really nice way to lose 3 minutes, but that just kind of happens with that skip. There's not really much you can do about it. And like I said, it really just kind of depends on the day as to whether or not I hit it or not. At least we're out of there. And there's still a decent amount of run left. So now I have a couple of breather stars, thankfully. starting with a Starshine Beach comet. So this is the comet I went out of my way to get that comet medal for, and you're going to see why here really shortly, because this star is actually insanely easy and incredibly fast. There are way more than 100 purple coins here, so there's pretty much no reason why you should miss this. And the only minor difficult thing about this star is you have to make tiny adjustments on the control stick. Like so. In order to not miss too many purple coins. Alright, 89 is a good number here, so I'm actually going to veer off to the right here, just to take a bit of a tighter cut there. You can only really do that if you have enough purple coins. Alright. Not too bad. So now I'm going to head off to World 3. And again, these are both Comet. So Honey Hall's Comet is a Comet I could have done earlier, but due to routing convenience, it's better to just do it now. We used to actually have to use it as like a buffer star so that B-Block's Comet could spawn, but now we don't have to. So Honey Hall's Comet is essentially the last part of Honey Hall's 2, but with Cosmic Clones. It's still just a bunch of long jumps. The patterns are going to be slightly different though, because the cycles of the Matter Mouths are a little bit different in this one. But yeah, there's not going to be too much to say about this level. Yeah, pretty straightforward level again, literally. And now we have one more really tricky star. So, this next star, Beat Block Comet, is where the game sort of outright lies to you. Because it says in Beat Block Comet that, if you remember from Beat Block 1, that the blocks would switch every 8 beats of the song. The star name here suggests that they're switching in double time, but it's actually 4 times as fast because they switch every other beat. This thankfully means that Missing Cycles does not lose more than like a second, but you still want to go fast, and it is super easy to just kind of get thrown in for a loop and then you miss a jump and die. And also the area with the silver stars is expanded by quite a bit. Fortunately, you can skip a good portion of this level because, for some stupid reason, Yoshi's in it. So you can just kind of infinite flutter pretty much all the way to the end. You can just sometimes get caught on those blocks there for no reason and it stops your momentum. So now I can just infinite flutter from here all the way over here. Okay, it's actually very risky to try to stall with a ground pound like that because of how quick ground pounds send you to the ground. That was pretty good. Alright, and now all we have left is 2 comets in World 6. So, we're actually reaching the home stretch here. There's not that much left in this run. So the first of the 2 World 6 comets I'm going to do here might look somewhat familiar to you, because it's basically the exact same thing as Throwback 2, just you have a timer. That's literally like the only major difference with Throwback Comet. It's basically just the Silver Stars mission. There just happens to be a timer at the bottom of the screen. There is actually another difference, and that some cycles near the beginning are slightly different because the level intro cutscenes show different parts of the level, but other than that, it's basically just Throwback 2 again. So if you enjoyed that level, then you'll really enjoy this level. So this cycle is a little bit tighter, getting past that bump there without having to wait because of the level intro cutscenes. But from here on out, it's basically just the same thing. Alright, I should be able to cleanly make that long jump this time. That was a really good Throwback Comet. I might have Starbits in my inventory if I don't spit them out right here. Alright, we good. And now we have the funny number of stars, and there is only 1 star left before we can go take on the big man himself. And that's actually going to be Flash Black Comet, which I passed by earlier because it is, again, faster to do it as the 70th star. Flash Black Comet is actually a pretty interesting star because it requires a very, very high amount of multitasking. Because you have multiple different ways you can kill the Octoombas, but the fastest way is to shoot them with Starbits and then kick them, which is what I'm going to try to do as often as possible. So this means you have to be able to pick up Starbits, shoot them, keep track of your Starbit counter, and control Mario all at the same time. Which makes this a pretty satisfying level to pull off, but it's also really challenging to do optimally. And if you miss a shot, then you also have to make sure you react to it properly, otherwise you'll just run into the Otherwise that happens, you just run into the Octoomba and you take damage. It's also, this star is also pretty easy to die to if you get too careless. The Octoombas have a tendency to snipe players off the edge. I'm a little short on Starbits here, but I should be able to make this work. And you get Yoshi at the end here, and the nice thing about Yoshi is that he can actually eat up multiple enemies at once, so I can use this to take care of the Octoombas a little bit quicker. There we go. A little bit sloppy, but worked out. And that is 70 stars. So now all that's left is Bowser's Galaxy Generator, which unfortunately this is the longest split in the run by several minutes, but in any event. But first we have the hardest skip in the entire run, the one and only Purple Idiot skip. So Lubba wants to bother us one more time before the end of the game. There's this space before the Galaxy Generator space where there's a cutscene that plays. But you can skip over that cutscene by just clicking on the Galaxy Generator space with the Wii Remote instead of moving there with the nunchuck, and that saves like 35 seconds. So yeah, pretty hilarious skip there, but now we're on to Bowser's Galaxy Generator. This is a really, really good final level. This is one of my favorite final levels in all of the Mario games. It's got really good music, there's a lot of really cool tricks in it, there's a really daunting Infinite Flutter, and a really stressful Bowser fight. All make for an exciting conclusion. So starting off here, we have another Lava Wall boost, this time to skip having to kill these Hammer Bros and take a flower all the way down. This one's much easier than the one in Grabbing All the Comet. I guess I should have said the ones, because I attempted both of them. Yeah, there we go. So I'm going to intentionally ditch the spindrill here by falling into the lava here, because that'll allow me to spin after jumping, and also long jump, which allows me to skip a good chunk of this section as well. And now I have this cylinder section, which looks really stylish and pulled off properly. Alright, I actually got a really high backflip there. This part's the hard part, because these bullet bills love to just break your clouds. Alright, not too bad. I wanted to have a cloud in reserve, but that's okay. Because now we have, in my opinion, the coolest looking infinite flutter in the run, because you're basically infinite fluttering over a giant pit of lava for most of it. This infinite flutter does cut off a couple of long sections of the level, and it is pretty daunting. And due to the 10-second cooldown, I actually have to split this flutter up into 2 parts. So this first part is just getting on top of the castle here, and then I can infinite flutter and do a dismount to get all the way to the final platform. That should be good. So I actually can land on the top platform here, which saves a few extra seconds over just flat out making the skip. So that skips pretty much the entire rest of the end of the level. And now I have the final Bowser fight, which is a very scary part of this run, 3 hours in, to put it lightly. Because Bowser does go back to dropping 3 meteors in this fight, but the problem with this fight is that he is insanely quick to pull out his punches. Which means you have even less time to react than you did before. And also, like I mentioned earlier, Bowser's shell seems to have a bigger hitbox than before, so it's a lot easier for the meteors to get deflected. So we'll see what happens. It's very easy to get to this this fight on good pace after having done all of that, and then you just miss a hit and you lose 20 seconds, and there goes your PB face. It's happened to me before. So just like the fight in Gravity Gauntlet, I can go for a punch cancel on this first hit here. So I'm going to wait for Bowser to drop the meteors, and then after he punches, I'll wait for him to start the other punch. And you'll get to see, and you should be able to tell the time difference in pulling out his fist. Right. I could hear the noise, so I know it worked. There is one other thing that can happen, and that it could happen on this third hit if I get really unlucky. You can actually hit Bowser as he's summoning the meteors and cancel that phase by accident, so that once Bowser actually punches, there's no meteors for you to ground pound into him, and that basically costs the same amount of time as missing a cycle. So if I don't get good positioning here on the third hit, that might happen, but this looks pretty good. This is probably the scariest hit. I almost thought Bowser would punch out that meteor there. And thankfully I don't have to worry about that for this fourth hit, because it just goes straight into the cutscene once I hit Bowser. So this looks pretty good. That was a really good fight. So there you have it. That's the end of the game, except not really, because the Galaxy 2 kind of pulls a fake out on you here. Seriously though, how does he survive that? So weird. So there is one more phase to the fight, and it is ridiculously easy. It's kind of a pushover, actually. It has the most epic music in the game, but you only get to hear it for like 25 seconds. You literally just press A and Z 4 times and you win in this fight. That's kind of it. And Bowser's one attack drops a coin, so it's basically impossible to die, unless you're just super bad. Sorry to anybody who might have died to this fight before. One more hit. Time is going to be coming up soon. It'll be when I touch the Grand Star, but I'm in control of the timer, so no need to worry about that. A bit unfortunate with what happened in Gravity Gauntlet Comet and Boom Moon Secret, but overall, I hope you still enjoyed this showcasing. This time is slightly below my standards. My PB in this category is a 3:00:31. The world record is a 2:58:39 by Nemi, so definitely check out the Galaxy Discord. Definitely check out the Galaxy 1 and 2 community. We have a lot of really active top-level runners right now, and the competition in Galaxy 2 has really been heating up recently. It's been really exciting to see a lot of players rise up the ranks, especially considering we have a tournament going on SpeedGaming, actually, that we are in the bracket stage of currently, so yeah. So here we go, and time. That says 3:05:06. Considering everything that happened, I guess I can live with that. So, thank you all for watching. I hope you enjoyed that, and I will throw it back on over to the host.